Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar on access to content with persons with disabilities. I would like to introduce my assistant from today for BIM, Ms. Go, who will be translating the presentations and the speakers today into sign language. Before we begin, please take some time to edit or change your display name to enable our secretariat team in recognizing you. Please start by stating the name of your organization, followed by your first names. We would really appreciate your kind cooperation to keep your microphone on mute, and we shall begin the webinar very, very soon. Distinguished speakers, guests, government representatives, respected academicians, members of the media, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. My name is Mawar Abdul Latif from the Content Forum Malaysia, and I will be the MC for today's session. On behalf of the webinar's secretariat team, we would like to extend our heartiest welcome to everyone here today. We appreciate you allocating some time in order to join us today. This webinar is targeted to inform and share about the requirements pertaining to the accessibility of content for persons with disabilities, which shall also be respectfully addressed as PWDs. The accessibility of content is guided through a new set of guidelines called Garis Panduan bagi Industri Penyiaran Swasta, Accessibility Orang Kurang Upaya OKU kepada kandungan television, which was successfully launched on 30th May 2022 by the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission MCMC. Additional to this, a new set of provisions has also been introduced by the Content Forum CMCF in the newly revamped Content Code, which came into effect on 30th May 2022. For your ease of reference, the access link to both documents will be shared with you in the chat box shortly. This webinar is hoped to provide the medium in sharing of knowledge, as well as exchanging of experiences between participants and the invited speakers who are experts in their respective fields. We are closely related to the needs and demands of PWDs. By the end of the webinar today, we hope that the participants will be furnished with sufficient information in order to make reasonable accommodations to deliver any content and information intended for the general public in accessible formats and technologies appropriate for persons with disabilities through necessary and justified modifications and adjustments. Before we proceed, allow me to share some basic house rules for today. If you have any questions, please click on the raise hand icon and wait to be addressed. We appreciate your cooperation to ensure that the speakers are not interrupted. In order to speak, please turn on your camera, unmute your microphone, identify your name and your organization. Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, for your information, the assistance from sign language interpreters will be used throughout the webinar in order to ensure that the valuable information being shared during this webinar is accessible for the PWD community as well. To begin this webinar, we are pleased to invite Yang Berusaha, Mr. Zulkarnain Muhammad Yassin, the Chief Regulatory Officer of Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission of Malaysia, MCMC, to deliver the opening speech. To assist on with the translation of the opening speech today into sign language, I would like to again introduce and welcome Ms. Goh. Please welcome Mr. Zulkarnain.
Thank you, Madam MC. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of MCMC, I would like to wish welcome to everyone attending this seminar. It is indeed heartwarming to note that although we are organizing this virtually, but I see a lot of many participations, not only from the industries, also the media representatives, academicians, as well as government agencies. Now, the purpose of having this seminar is to provide access or sharing of knowledge, as well as giving guidance to the participants, the new guidelines that has been issued by MCMC. I'm especially pleased to welcome Professor Dr. Rosita Muhammad Amin, who is at the forefront of person with disabilities rights in Malaysia, to give the keynote address today. I would like also to give my appreciations to our panelists and speakers for taking time to enlighten us all about the needs of the PWD community and help us come up with better ways to ensure the community receives appropriate access to the communications and multimedia services. The guideline was initiated by MCMC as a part of our commitment to support the PWD policy and the PWD national plan issued by the government to ensure that the PWDs enjoy equal rights, opportunities, and access to information on broadcast platforms. Based on data from Jabatan Kebajikan Malaysia, there are approximately 587,000 PWDs registered in Malaysia as at November 2021. There are countless others who did not register. So we should not take lightly the PWD audiences, as they are quite sizable. Access to information is an important and a rights to all Malaysians. Most have always relied on news, particularly news on broadcast media, for latest and pertinent information. The importance of news is demonstrated by its inclusion in the special license conditions for content application service providers, better known as broadcasters. As such, news is one of the main areas of this guideline to seek to ensure that PWD is accessible through the use of one-off access tools, which include sign language interpreters, closed captioning, or subtitling, or other alternative means. For your information, the details of the guideline will be presented in the next session. MCMC sees this guideline as an instrument that would help the broadcaster progressively build up their capacity and capability in preparing better TV access for persons with disabilities, and to ensure its continued use in the long term. This is also in line with the provisions of Section 16 and 13 of the Persons with Disabilities Act 2008. Section 16 states that it shall be the responsibility and obligation of the private sector and non-governmental organizations to give due considerations to the national policy and national plan of action of the government relating to persons with disabilities. And Section 30 emphasized that persons with disabilities shall have the right to access to information, communication technology on equal basis with persons without disabilities. It also requires the provider of information, communication technologies shall, in order to provide persons with disabilities to have such access, provide the information, communications and technology in accessible formats and technologies appropriate to different kinds of disabilities in a timely manner and without additional cost. In coming up with the guideline, MCMC had carried out a benchmark exercise with other countries. We note that this the requirement for broadcasters to provide seamless access for persons with disabilities in other jurisdictions such as UK, US, Thailand, and Singapore. To assist the broadcasters in Malaysia, the government, via its 2022 budget, has allocated a grant of 900,000 to encourage broadcasters to use the service of sign language interpreters in news program. I strongly suggest that the broadcasters take advantage of the initiative or incentive given by the government. MCMC will continue to stress the importance of ensuring all Malaysians get easy access to information through all platforms. We encourage broadcasters to pay particular attention to the reporting of news and ensure its accessibility to persons with disabilities. MCMC will be closely monitoring the implementation of TV access to persons with disabilities by the broadcasters, and we will work with stakeholders to ensure that it will be further enhanced. This is just a start of a journey. We are looking forward to an improved access and coverage, not only in terms of the news segment, but also other segment that can improve the livelihood of the person with disabilities. And I would also like to encourage access is, we should not limit ourselves in terms of access, but also opportunity, equal opportunity should be given to the person with disabilities for content creation, as well as content created to highlight the needs and the requirements of this community. Please take note that and learn that all of us with the sharing session from our learned speakers, panelists today, and see how the experience that can be drawn from the knowledge from the practitioners can be implemented to make a person with disabilities are not left behind in terms of access to information that is critical to their livelihood. With that, I'm very grateful for the speakers to have agreed to appear today and share their knowledge on the subject. In closing, I would also like to thank my colleague from MCMC and our partners, Content Forum, for making this seminar a reality. With that, I thank you all and all the best during this session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zulkarnain, for the very warm, welcoming speech. Next, we are honored to introduce our keynote speaker for today's webinar, Yang Berusaha, Professor Dr. Rosita binti Muhammad Amin. Professor Dr. Rosita is the head of Disability Services Unit within the Office of Deputy Rector Student Affairs at the International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. She is also a professor in the Department of Economics at IIUM. Among her long list of researches, Professor Dr. Rosita had conducted a research entitled Kajian Peluang Pekerjaan Orang Kurang Upaya di Malaysia under the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development. She was responsible in drafting of IIUM Disability Inclusion Policy, which was endorsed by the IIUM Board of Governors. Throughout her service, Professor Dr. Rosita has received many awards. She was awarded a special award for persons with disabilities in conjunction with Persons with Disabilities Celebration Day for the year 2012 by the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development. She is also a member of National Council for Persons with Disabilities under the same ministry. She also sits as a member of the Task Force for PWD Parking Enforcement under the Ministry of Transport. She played an integral role as the co-chairman of the Working Committee on the preparation of guidelines of disability inclusion policy for higher education under the Ministry of Education. Professor Dr. Rosita was also the member of advisory panel to Yang Berhormat Senator Ras Adi Baradzi, the representative of persons with disabilities in the Upper House Parliament of Malaysia. To assist with the translation of the keynote speech today into sign language, we would like to again welcome Ms. Goh. Let us now welcome Yang Berusaha, Professor Dr. Rosita binti Muhammad Amin, to deliver her keynote speech. Over to you, Professor Dr. Rosita.
Thank you very much, Mawar. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank MCMC, the organizers, for inviting me to this very important seminar, which I think is the first that we have had, over the years. And I think this is a significant move on the part of the government to ensure that access to content for persons with disabilities are taken care of. And I think it is very timely. Okay, and in my presentation, I will try to share some of the policies that I'm requested to have a presentation on the introduction to policy on persons with disabilities. I will try to present some of the things, initiatives that Malaysia has had over the years, and how we can actually further these important measures to ensure the inclusivity of persons with disabilities in our society. Let me share my slides. Oh, I cannot share my slides. Okay. First of all, when we talk about the persons with disabilities in Malaysia, okay, we I think it was mentioned just now that the number of persons with disabilities, we have more than 500,000. That's a significant number, although by the number estimated by the WHO, the World Health Organization, is actually significantly more. Okay, can I ask if I can share my slides actually? Is it possible for me to share my slides?
Can we get the Secretariat to assist on this, please? Thank you.
Yeah, because the share screen, I cannot share the screen yet. Okay, now I can. Okay. Okay. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, we can see the slides.
You can see the
Dr.
slide.
Rosita? Yes.
Okay. All right. So as you can see in the slides, that where is it? Okay. How do we define the person with disabilities? Okay. So as you can see there, person with disabilities is defined as those having long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. And this is a definition given by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, in which Malaysia is a signatory. Yeah. So, and as I mentioned just now, based on the World Health Organization's report on disability, actually, although the number registered in Malaysia is quite small, but actually in the world, about 15% is estimated. Yeah, 15% of world population is estimated to be having some kind of disability. Yeah, and that is a very significant number. And if you base it on Malaysia's population of 33.8 million in 2022, 15% accounts for 5.07 million, and 5.07 million is a significant number actually to deal with, right? And out of this, yeah, only 1%, 1.8% is actually registered with the Department of Social Welfare, right? So because our registration with JKM is not compulsory, therefore, I think the estimate, World Health Organization's estimate of 15,000, it will be the basis of policies that needs to be developed in Malaysia in relation to meeting the needs of persons with disabilities, the 15% or the 5.07 million, significant number, right? So this is the breakdown. If you were to look at the breakdown, this is based on the 31st January 2021, which was found on the website. Okay, so I think as many of us know, the types of disabilities in Malaysia, we categorize it into 7 categories. Right, physical, learning, hearing, vision, speech, mental, and multiple. Right, so as you can see there, the numbers, the breakdowns are there, and we have a significant number, right, for physical disability, followed by learning disability, and then we also have 52,000 of vision with disability, and more than 40,000 persons with hearing disability, right, and also for learning disabilities we have 203,765, right, registered in the JKM, and the total is 592,856. Yeah, but the latest figures in 30th May 2022, the total number registered is 606,859. But I don't have the breakdown by the categories. Yeah, but this is the number has been increasing over the years. Okay, so if we talk about the policies, right? Policies are actually developed based on national aspirations. Yeah, and what do we have in terms of the national aspirations, the country's national aspirations? Are we looking for the welfare of the citizens of the country? Are we looking for equity? Are we actually looking for well-being or ensuring the well-being of the nationals? Are we talking about peace and harmony, right? All of these things are very important questions when we talk about meeting the needs of national aspirations and how we develop policies. Yeah. So as a Malaysian citizen, yeah, as a Malaysian citizen, when we talk about the rights as a Malaysian citizen, it has to be inclusive, right? Inclusive. And we know that under the shared prosperity vision, inclusivity is one of the important components that is being highlighted and needs to be achieved by 2030, which is not too long away actually, because now it's only 2022. We only have 8 years to go, right? And talk about the rights as a Malaysian citizen, rights to education, rights to health, rights to security, employment, religion, and others. All these are actually very, very important rights that needs to be ensured. And there has to be some enabling factors, right, to ensure that the rights as Malaysian citizens are actually enjoyed by everybody, including including persons with disabilities. Yeah. So when we talk about access to information, that is a very, very important component. Accessibility is a very important component for those maybe with physical disabilities, right? The physical accessibility may be a very important and very crucial element in ensuring that we can enjoy our rights as Malaysian citizens in all these areas. But for persons with perhaps visual impairment as well as hearing impairments, for the deaf and the blind, for instance, right? Access to content or access to information, right, in digital platforms, okay, in broadcasting, in mass media, and so on. These are actually very crucial elements, enabling elements for these groups as well. So that's why this seminar, I believe, is very, very important for us to ensure, right, that persons with disabilities are not discriminated or sidelined in our strive to achieve progress for the country. Yeah. Okay, so we have actually an education. This is actually disability inclusive commitments, right, in Malaysia. Sorry for the typo. That is a disability inclusive commitments for the country. We have international commitments and we also have national commitments, yeah, that we have developed, right, over the years. So international commitments include the UNCRPD, which I've just mentioned, quoted the definition of the PWDs. Yeah. For Malaysia, we have actually signed it in 2008 and has been ratified in 2010. So now it's already 2022, right? So 12 years has passed since it has been ratified, and we need to actually comply to all the articles in the international commitments, yeah, under the UNCRPD. And if you can see Article 21, all right, on freedom of expression and opinion and access to information. Yeah, so I can see that it's very important to provide information for the general public, must also be accessible to persons with disabilities, and it must be given in accessible formats and technologies appropriate, to all kinds of disabilities. Yeah. Accepting and facilitating the use of sign languages, braille, augmentative, and communication, and all other accessible means, modes, and formats of communication is also important, right? And encouraging the mass media, including providers of information through the media, must make the services accessible to persons with disabilities. Okay, so the last one is also important, that recognizing and promoting the use of sign languages. I'm very happy that we can see that more and more TV stations are actually having sign languages, especially for the news programs, right? And also in terms of other programs such as religious programs and other important programs that needs to be accessed by everyone, including persons with disabilities. Another document that we have signed is actually the insurance strategy to make the right real for persons with disabilities in Asia and the Pacific. All right. So this is actually sort of a branch out of the UNCRPD, focusing on the Asia and the Pacific. So if you were to look at the insurance strategy, it has got 10 goals, 27 targets, and 62 indicators, right? And we are actually supposed to report, okay, the progress, okay, that the country has achieved in all these areas. I think by 2032, if I'm not mistaken, right? So to ensure that we comply to all the international commitments, yeah. So if you have to look at out of the 10 goals, goal number 3, okay, specifically talks about enhancing access to not just physical environment and public transportation, but also knowledge and information and information and communication, right? So there are lots of indicators, yeah, lots of indicators. 3.3, for instance, proportion of daily captioning and sign language interpreting of public and television news programs. Again, we need to report, okay, what is the proportion that we have that already. And then proportion of accessible and usable public documents and websites, right, to internationally recognized accessibility standards. Yeah. So these indicators, are the things that the statistics that we need to actually report to the UNESCAP. Okay, when we in order to monitor the progress of countries. Yeah, and then we also have this Marrakesh Treaty, the World Blind Union Guide to the Marrakesh Treaty, and for education we have the Salamanca Statement and Framework for Action for Special Needs Education. And for Malaysia, actually we have officially, right, have accession to the Marrakesh Treaty on 31st March 2022, and this is a very important step, right, in whereby exemptions to copyright are allowed for the blind to make and distribute reading materials in accessible format, okay, for the visually impaired. So previously we have to actually refer to copyright controls. Yeah, but now with the Marrakesh Treaty, for the blind, it's much easier to share all the format materials in accessible formats. So those are the international commitments that we have. Yeah, we also have our own national commitments. I think everybody knows that we have the Persons with Disabilities Act 2008, right, which is an act to provide for the registration, protection, rehabilitation, development and well-being of persons with disabilities, right, and the establishment of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities and for all matters related. Yeah, so this Persons with Disabilities Act, although it is more like administrative in nature, but I think that should not stop us from actually complying, okay, to the content of the act itself. Even though penalty measure is not there, I hope in the revision of the Persons with Disabilities Act can actually have that enforcement component whereby the articles stated in the act can actually be complied with, and we can ensure the compliance from the legal perspective as well. Yeah, but notwithstanding that, I think even despite not having it, I think as human beings, okay, and as Malaysian citizens, I think it is our responsibility to ensure that everybody has a right and to access information, okay, in the mass media. Yeah, okay. In Akta OKU, I think it has been mentioned just now that Article 30, access to information, right, specifically mentioned about rights to information and communication technology on equal basis, yeah, for persons with disabilities. And this is why this seminar is important. And if you can see in our Shared Prosperity Vision 2030, we have 15 guiding principles. Very important one component is inclusivity highlighted there, right? And without allowing access to to broadcasting media and to digital platforms, okay, inclusivity is very difficult to achieve for everyone, right? So there will be still segments of the society, especially persons with disabilities, who will be denied, this very important way to actually enhance our knowledge, okay, and develop ourselves further in life, okay, and as a member of the Malaysian society. Okay, in education, for instance, right, I think we have mentioned just now that we have actually developed the guidelines, garis panduan pelaksanaan dasar inklusif orang kurang upaya di institusi pendidikan tinggi. So this is an important initiative under the Ministry of Education. At that time, it was merged. Ministry of Education and Ministry of Higher Education was merged, right? And I was a member of the Majlis Penasihat Pendidikan Kebangsaan at that time, and we actually came up with a committee to develop this guideline. It was launched on the 5th of September 2019, right? And very important, among the important things in this document is that every university, okay, or every institution needs to establish what we call the disability unit, right? Disability unit, all right, to ensure that all the needs, okay, of the students, staff with disabilities, as well as the visitors are taken care of, right, in all areas to ensure the well-being are taken care of. Okay. Now, I think this is, and then secondly, is the development of the strategic planning, all right, for disability inclusion in all universities, right? And thirdly is what we call the mindset transformation program, all right, which essentially talks about how we can create better awareness and empathy among the everyone on the community towards disability inclusion, right, towards persons with disabilities. All right, so I think these three important components is actually very applicable to all organizations when we talk about disability inclusion. Yeah, disability unit, for instance, right? Perhaps every news agency may want to have a unit that caters for this, right? Because the needs of persons with disabilities, okay, are very unique and very specific, and sometimes it needs to be tailored to the needs of the specific persons, right? So this is the role of the unit, right? To try to cater and provide reasonable accommodation. We're not talking about unreasonable accommodation. Okay, we're talking about reasonable accommodation to meet the needs of the clients and as well as the staff of the organization. Yeah, and secondly, strategic planning. Okay, it's very good that we have these guidelines that you have come up. MCMC has come up with a guideline for content accessibility, and I think every organization needs to actually come up with a strategic plan on how to actually implement this and ensure that by certain targeted dates, right? Okay, a certain a percentage of achievement, okay, in terms of access to content can actually be achieved, okay, so that eventually 100% content accessibility can actually be achieved, right? So that we can have a shorter term and also a longer term strategic plan, and without the strategic plan, sometimes the initiatives would just be sometimes be based on persons or champions in the organization, right? But once you have a strategic plan, whoever takes up the post or the responsibility will have to ensure that they carry on the strategic planning until the objectives are achieved, until the targeted the objectives are achieved in the targeted deadlines. Yeah, and the third one is what we call mindset transformation program. This is a very critical component whereby we have to ensure that there is an awareness, not just awareness, but a real empathy on the part of the service providers on how to actually make sure that disability inclusion can actually be implemented in the true sense of the word. Here, when we talk about the broadcasting agencies, how do we actually ensure that access to information are done correctly, right, and in a very timely manner. Yeah, and this is very important. These three components is actually applicable not just for education but for all organizations. Yeah. Okay, so and we have we are aware, I think, from the budget presentation 2022. Alhamdulillah, I think the budget 2022 was very friendly to persons with disabilities. There are many special allocations given for to ensure needs of the persons with disabilities are taken care of. Okay, for instance, in terms of accessibility, 30 million was allocated to upgrade government buildings. Yeah, this is to comply to the insurance strategy. Perhaps it can also be given for every subsequent years. Yeah, and then training, 10 million is given to the independent living center, 10 million to establish the pusat pemulihan dalam community for at universities. Yeah, and then the third one, okay, PWD access to media, the provision of sign language interpreters in TV station news. Okay, 1 million was allocated for that initiative, right? And I think this is the first time that this such initiative has been announced, right, in as a special budget, special allocation in the national budget, right? So, and on top of that, there are other initiatives like free road tax for PWDs and the special 1% quota under My Step for PWDs. Yeah. Okay, so these are important initiatives, yeah, and nationally, right? And now we have this guideline on television access for persons with disabilities. I think this is wonderful, all right, and a very, very significant step towards inclusion. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the presentation after this, yeah, on what the guideline contains, right, and in terms of ensuring how access to content can actually be achieved, right, for persons with disabilities. Yeah. All right. So why is this important? All right. Why is television important? Okay. Television is a very important tool, yeah, to enhance, of course, number one, national identity. All right, and then providing an outlet for domestic media content. The third one is that actually the getting news and information to the public, which is especially critical in times of emergencies, right? And recently, the last 2 years, we saw our pandemic, the crisis, COVID-19 pandemic crisis, right, where we have announcements every day, right? Daily announcements, all the SOPs are being conveyed, over the television and so on. So imagine, if these are not made accessible to persons with disabilities, right? They will actually be, they would not know, right, what to do, all right, during lockdowns, yeah, and especially in emergencies such as what do you call it, banjir, right, or the floods and the mass floods that happened in KL very recently, right? And then perhaps a national maybe weather or disasters, okay, natural disasters like storm or in the earthquakes. Imagine if important information that that needs to be conveyed urgently to the public, okay, but this information cannot be accessed by persons with disabilities, right? Especially the deaf and the blind, okay, because they have said they lost their visual sense as well as the hearing sense, so they cannot get access to the information. So a lot of times, studies have shown that in natural disasters, okay, the first people who actually died are actually persons with disabilities. Yeah. So why? Number one, one of the reasons is because they do not know, okay, where to go. They do not get access to information. So it's very, very important. It's a matter of life and death at times. Okay, if you do not provide access to information for everyone, including persons with disabilities. Okay. And secondly, television programs are very, very important because it's a principal source of news and information. Despite being developed countries, there are still pockets of the population which still do not cannot read and write, yeah, or illiterate. And some of them are actually persons with disabilities because of their impairments. Yeah, some actually cannot actually learn how to read and write. So for them, a visual display is very important, and audio display is very important. So it's very important that all this information reaches them as well. Yeah. And of course, in talk about education, broadcasting serve as important educational purposes, okay, by transmitting courses and other instructional material. This we actually have seen it, right, during the pandemic. Okay, we went for online classes, yeah, but not everybody have got the gadgets. Yeah. So how do we actually reach out to the rural areas? Okay, we know that almost everybody have got televisions, right? So the Ministry of Education actually provide TV programs, okay, on subjects in education for SPM, for instance. Yeah. So this television has got very important role in reaching to the public and ensuring the access to the content is accessible to the person with disabilities is very, very important. Yeah. All right. So okay, these are just some of the things that I think we need to be aware of. I don't think we have time for this. But what we can do, okay, we talk about participant restriction. Okay, what makes a person disabled actually, right? So a person may have impairments, all right, okay, but a person may not necessarily be disabled, all right. Okay, maybe just a short one, a quick one, okay. So if, for instance, okay, now anything wrong with this diagram, with this picture, all right. So usually I like to interact, okay, with the audience, okay, when we have this slide, okay, and the slide shows, okay, a person, a shopkeeper selling shoes, and then the customer, there's one man standing, all right, holding a grocery bag, and there's one lady on a wheelchair, okay, pointing to the shoes that she wants to buy. Okay, the lady was talking to the shopkeeper, all right, but the shopkeeper was ignoring the lady and instead was talking to the standing person, all right, next to her, and he was asking him, and what size would she like? Okay, So what is wrong with this picture, right? So to cut the story short, okay, so you can see that so the shopkeeper was not entertaining the lady. The lady was actually the one. The lady on wheelchair was the one who wanted to buy the shoes, but he was not entertaining her. All right. So this actually happens all the time, also to myself even. All right. So in this day and age, yeah, believe it or not, yeah. So this is an example of what we call what do you call uh, uh, barrier. This is actually I missed the word. What is it? This is actually oh my god, what is the word? They are actually okay. This is attitude. Sorry, yes, that's the right word. Attitudinal barrier. Okay, attitudinal barrier whereby instead of talking to the addressing to the person with disability, the shopkeeper was actually looking to the non-disabled person, right? And we have another picture. What is the problem? We have a picture of a boy in a wheelchair. All right, he's smiling away. Is there a problem with this boy? Okay, some people will say that, okay, the problem is with his legs. Some people say that the problem is with his wheelchair, right? But he's actually smiling, actually, right? Despite, maybe not being able to walk and being in a wheelchair. So, but what is actually the problem? Okay. Now, he was still smiling when he was on his wheelchair, if he can get around. But once he encounters a staircase, right? Steps. He cannot go to the shop, for instance. The shop is on a different upper level. So he encounters steps, right? So his mouth droops, okay? So he becomes very sad. Why? Because he cannot go to the shop, right? Because he cannot access, okay, to the shop. He cannot access the shop because of the barrier. And the barrier there is barrier is not his wheelchair. The barrier is actually the staircase, right? So the staircase provides the barrier, and the barrier there is what we call the physical barriers, okay? Physical barriers. Okay, similarly for information barrier, right? Information barrier. So a person may not be able to access the knowledge and information, okay, provided by television, provided by websites, and so on, if they are not made in accessible format, right? So that becomes what we call informational barrier. Yeah. So what do we see over here? A person, okay, may have an impairment, but it may not necessarily make them disabled. But what actually makes them disabled is the staircase, right? And it's the attitude of the shopkeeper, right? Who does not want to talk to the lady in the wheelchair, right? So these are the barriers that actually cause persons with impairments to become disabled. Okay, so the disability actually results from the interaction between persons with impairments and attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinders their full and effective participation in the society on an equal basis with others. This was a very definition that I've mentioned or I've read out at the beginning of my presentation. This is taken from the UNCRPD, all right? So people may not necessarily become disabled because of the impairment. Okay, it is the barriers that causes persons with impairments to become disabled. So please help us to enable ourselves to be able to participate, right, as equal members of the Malaysian society. Yeah. So this is the difference between impairments and the disability. Okay, impairment is the loss of physiological or psychological, all right, due to injury, illness, or congenital condition, all right. Disability is loss of limitation, loss or limitation of opportunities to take part in society on an equal level due to social and environmental barriers. Yeah. Okay. So these are the 4 barriers. Okay. Okay. That to inclusiveness for persons with disabilities. I mentioned physical barriers just now. Staircase and other forms of physical barriers. Informational barriers is very important here, right? That directly relates to our seminar, okay? Related to inaccessible information, particularly for the visual and the hearing impaired. Attitudinal barrier, again, if policymakers are not willing to make the changes, right? If the managers are not willing to make changes, then we are looking at attitudinal barriers, okay? Where that relates to insensitivity and lack of empathy towards persons with disabilities. And the last one is what we call the systemic barriers. These are related to inflexible policies and procedures. They say that, oh no, my TV station cannot have sign language interpreters. That is inflexibility, right? But what we need to do is we need to break that inflexibility and accommodate the needs of all our audiences, including persons with disabilities, right? So we need to break the systemic barriers, okay, and make our procedures and policies flexible to everyone. Yeah. What can we do? Okay, what can we do? All right. Two kinds of people, two kinds of thinking. All right. The example of AirAsia previously, where initially when AirAsia was launched, okay, it was not accessible to persons with disabilities, right? So they cannot access, they cannot get on board. Okay, so not everybody can fly. Okay. Now one kind of thinking will be saying that, okay, I'm so sorry, but you cannot fly. Okay, if you can do A, B, and C, then you can fly. It's for your safety, sir. All right. So this is one, example. Yeah. So one example of thinking. Another kind of thinking is, okay, what can I do to make him fly? Okay, what can I do to make him fly? So these are two different ways of thinking, right? The first is what we call prerequisite thinking, very rigid, inflexible. Okay, and second one is what we call breakthrough thinking. Breakthrough thinking is what we want, okay, whereby we can break through, okay, the usual norms, okay, and actually make changes for the betterment of the society, right? Make changes for the betterment of persons with disabilities, right? So if you're an organization, okay, so this is what we need to do, all right? And as and actually it's part of our responsibility, right? If we are actually heads of the organizations, okay, it is our responsibility to actually ensure that we dispose our responsibility to reach everybody, including persons with disabilities. Yeah. All right. So this is the example of breakthrough thinking. Okay, if you cannot go up the stairs, then somebody can actually help you go up the staircase. But of course, with technology and other ways, there are many ways to actually go up to the plane. So this is another example. This is more of a physical barrier, right? But you see there are so many things there along the walk, along the pathway, right, which blocks a wheelchair from passing, which blocks persons with blind people from walking. They will bump into the dustbin, they will bump into many things along the road. So what can we do? We can actually remove all these obstacles. Yeah. So similarly, this is just examples, right, that we can apply for the communication area as well, right? So we talk about the 2B strategy when we talk about inclusiveness. Okay. One is barrier, right? The first triangle there, we have it forms as a mountain. So that's a physical barrier. It hinders people from passing through the road. Another barrier is like there's an upside down triangle on the road that actually is like a hole or a sinkhole, okay, whereby if people were to walk and over it, people will fall into the hole. Okay, so what do we do in order to make it safe for everybody? In order to allow everybody to pass the road, we have to break the mountain, and we have to actually build a bridge across the hole, right? Or close the hole. So break the barrier and build the bridge. So we call it a 2B strategy, right? So sometimes we talk about barriers, sometimes we talk about gaps, okay, gaps. So we need to break the barriers and we need to build the bridges over the gaps, yeah? So this is another example of formal equality and substantive equality. The first picture on the left shows 3 people, an adult, teenager, and a small child, all given the same thing. It's treated equally. Okay, everybody is given a box to stand on. So there's a fence over the box. So 2 of them managed to see after standing on the stool on the box. 2 of them can watch the game, but the child still cannot watch the game. This is if everybody is treated equally, right? But what you can do is that the adult doesn't need the box. So the box can be given to the child so that now the child can actually also watch the game. So this is an example of, equal treatment does not necessarily mean justice. All right. So you have to be equity. It has to be, you have to actually address the issues based on the needs of the specific people. Okay. So reasonable accommodation, okay, we don't talk about trying to make people normal in order for them to participate. If you're blind, sometimes blind people cannot be changed to make them see. Okay, people who are deaf cannot be made to make them hear. Okay, so you cannot do that all the time. Okay, that's the medical model. Sometimes you can do that, that's fine, but most of the times you cannot, right? So for a person with disabilities and they have impairments, we provide reasonable accommodation in order for them to participate, all right, just like other people, all right. So impairments plus reasonable accommodation can allow persons with disabilities to participate fully in the society, right? We don't necessarily have to make them normal, okay, but we are already normal, okay, because we are already normal human beings. So we cannot actually, sometimes we cannot, the impairments cannot be rectified medically. So we need actually to have reasonable accommodation to allow us to participate in the society, okay. So this will be the action plan, okay, for the policies for the organizations to take up, right? Okay, what can we do? Okay, the question was, what can we do to make the changes? So action plan to realize full participation and equality for all. What can we really do in, let's say, 6 months, for instance? So, okay, come up with an ideal vision, come up with a goal in 6 months. Okay, how many programs we want to make accessible, for instance, right? And so what are the targets, okay, along the way, the shorter term, 1 month, in 3 months, 5 and 6 months, okay? And what is the current situation? So this is how we plan out, and it's part of the strategic planning in order to ensure that over time, okay, we will be able to ensure that our programs, television programs are all made accessible to persons with disabilities, right? So without this action plan or without the strategic plan, our initiative will be haphazard. And haphazard is no good, okay? It's like building houses in a squatter areas, no, all haphazard. But if you have a planned method of realizing our goals, it is like having a very nice housing development where everything is well planned, houses are lined up nicely in a row, there's shops and so on, okay. So that is the analogy, okay, of having a action plan and not having an action plan, okay. Having a guideline is good, but I think the next thing to do will be organizations to actually come up with the strategic plan and the action plans on how to implement it, all right, in a proper way, okay. All right. The next thing that we need to do is actually to listen. Okay, it's very important to listen to the clients, right? Here, in the case of buses, we have to listen to the clients what they need actually to make it accessible. So one picture there shows that it's very difficult to get on the buses, to on the stations. Second picture there very nicely have got the ramp. Why? Because they listen to the clients. Okay. Similarly, for communication is very important to hear to the clients, to our friends who are deaf, to our friends who are blind. So I'm looking forward to the sharing session today to learn also what the experience and what are the things that the companies and the TV stations can actually accommodate their needs. Yeah. Okay. So what can we do to make our agency better? Make a list of it, right? For instance, closed captions television, right? In some countries, they already have it, okay, closed captions on television. Sign language on television, we are increasingly having it, okay, alhamdulillah, okay. Audio disrupt television, where the narrator disrupts action on the screen, for instance, yeah, right? And in some countries, they have devices, yeah, magnifying devices to magnify television glasses. And some they have spectacle mounted telescope, but these are more of in terms of devices. Okay, so these are advancements in technologies that can actually be adopted, right, and implemented in our country, right? And hopefully with all this we are able to create a barrier-free and inclusive society for all, and everybody is happy and all the barriers are removed and all the gaps have been gauged. Yeah. So so this is the kind of society that we want, a very caring society. And I always like to end with this inspiration. Okay, sometimes we think that it is very difficult to do, right, to accommodate the needs of persons with disabilities, right? But it is not because things are difficult, okay, that we do not dare. Okay, it is because we do not dare that things become difficult. Okay, and with that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Yang Berusaha Professor Dr. Rosita binti Muhammad Amin, for delivering the keynote speech for today, which speaks about the international and national commitments by Malaysia as a country, which includes the implementation of laws, guidelines, and regulations to ensure the inclusivity of PWDs as equal members of the society. So let us work together to reach the barrier-free society starting by breaking down the informational barriers by making information and content accessible by the PWDs, especially to those who are visually and hearing impaired. So before we move on to the first presentation for today, we would like to announce that there are cash prizes awaiting to be won by the participants of the webinar today. We will be selecting 3 of the most active participants to receive cash prizes. All you need to do is to be as engaged as possible during the session. Be vocal, be active. For the purpose of fair play, each participant will be selected and announced as a winner only once throughout today's seminar. Winners are required to provide full name, organization, and the contact number to the Secretariat, which will be contacting them later. So stay tuned, everyone. This brings us to our first presentation of the day, entitled Guidelines on TV Access for Persons with Disabilities. We would like to call upon Ms. Goh to assist with the translation of the presentation into sign language. The presenter for this session is Ms. Ong So Yin, the Deputy Director of Content Regulation Department, MCMC. Just a quick reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to pose a question, please click on the raise hand icon and wait to be addressed. Without further ado, please welcome Ms. Ong So Yin.
Hi, thank you, Marwa.
Marwa akan announce.
Thank you, Marwa. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the session today. I'm So Ying from Content Regulation Department. I will walk you through the TV accessibility guidelines, namely Garis Panduan bagi Industri Penyiaran Swasta, Accessibility Orang Kurang Upaya kepada Kandungan Television. So first, let's explore what is accessibility. Accessibility is not equal to disability. It's actually an ability to access and letting people to have access even if they are disabled, and a universal inclusive design to get everyone fully participate. So before we deep dive on the type of accessibility in our guideline, let's have a pop quiz. What do you think that who has limited visions? Considering the 4 people here in the picture.
Sure, loss of sight.
Is there any answers?
The blind lah.
Becky guy lah.
Becky guy.
Oh yeah, you got me right. You get
Dia tak ada.
the answer is all of them.
Dia mungkin dia positif.
And let's have another one. Who has hearing loss?
Betty tak kira kan?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them again. Yeah, you are right.
Which one?
I think everyone is on the same page with me now. All of them has different level of disability. They are experiencing same need, whether it is permanent or temporary or situational.
Tak lah kan?
Disability is a much broader term that we might think. So have sometimes we will have accessibility need at certain point of time throughout our lifetime. So this shows that how important is the accessibility. Okay. Do you know World Health Organizations found that at least 2.2 million people globally have a near or distant vision impairments, and every 4th person to suffer hearing loss by year of 2050. So what does the figures tell us? It means that more people will benefit from the accessibility future. Actually, for broadcaster who desires to build a better experience for your audience, the accessibility feature will be something you might think about. Okay, now we have some basic idea on the accessibility and disability. So I would like to share with you 2 videos just to experience what actually audience with vision and hearing impairments watching videos without accessibility. You can close your eye if you want.
Ooh, hello.
Okay, so can you follow the video by just listening to what is going on? Or what kind of, so what critical information that are you missing? Or can you tell me the string? Let's look. This is another video. So, do you know what they're actually talking about and what they're trying to say?
No, we don't. It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, so this is the reason why we need to have the disability group to eliminate their barriers. And the barrier not only due to disability, but also environments. For example, if you are in a library and you urgently need to watch your video to get information from the video, but unfortunately, you have no earphone with you now. So, isn't it good to have subtitles or accessible feature for you to get the correct information? So in this case, so now we want to explore what is the type of accessibilities that we mentioned in our guideline. We mentioned few options, which is audio descriptions, closed caption, sign language, or subtitles. For audio description, it can help people who are blindness or low visions. It is actually a verbal descriptions that convey important information and even the scenes that are not heard. Let's have a look on the video.
Hello. He takes a deep sniff. His nose lands on a frozen pond. A reindeer looks up and pants like a dog. Seeing the reindeer slip on the ice, the snowman smiles and moves towards him, though actually he's running on the spot. The reindeer falls on his chin. The snowman uses his arm as a crutch. The reindeer paddles his front legs. Head over heels, the snowman crawls along the ice. The reindeer does the breaststroke. The snowman rolls his body, but flips onto his back. The reindeer's tongue sticks to the ice. The snowman hurls his head. Twig arm and reindeer lips tug at the carrot. The carrot flies off and lands in soft snow. The reindeer goes after it with snowman and his body parts hanging on his tail. The snowman puts himself back together. Hello.
Subtitles. Subtitles are intended for hearing viewers who do not understand the language, and it only focuses on the spoken content. but not sound effect or other audio element in the video. So let's see what.
Sudah.
Dah cucu, tak rasa sakit pun. Aku pula.
Dah.
Alah, betul tak sakit. Kawan-kawan, jom ambil vaksin PIC Kids sekarang untuk selamat daripada COVID-19.
Syabas. Lindung diri, lindung kanak-kanak, lindung semua.
Betul-betul-betul.
So sometimes the subtitle will be in our language or different, normally it's different languages. Let's have another one. Okay. Closed captions. Closed captions are meant for hard of hearing audience to communicate all the audio information, including sound effects and non-speech element. The big difference between subtitle and closed caption is subtitle only capture the spoken language. Let's see this example. So this might not be a good example, but it show the difference between the subtitle and the closed caption. The video have actually no spoken content, but it's still labeled music there because there is a sound effect. And sign language. Sign language is a non-verbal language. The gesture, the use of gestures, symbols, or face expressions to communicate the thought and idea without the use of word. Let's have a look.
Kawasan berbanding dengan sebelumnya 222 kawasan paling. Kawasan
okay. It is also just the sign language that we have today. And ACC, Augmented and Alternative Communications. ACC is a wide spectrum and extremely diverse. It is a range of strategy and approach, vary depends on the capability of the audience. So it refers to all form of non-verbal communications to get the message across. Technically speaking, we use form of ACC every day. For example, face expressions, body language, gestures, sign language or para-language, and many more. Or sometimes it can involve technology. For example, picture, symbols, even you are typing over text to speech and eyes tracking software and many other more. Okay. So in UK, just share an example. In UK, ACC strategy is used in kids' content and learning program, such as CBs, to overcome the disability and barrier to learning. That program CB is called Something Special with Character Mr. Tumbles. The use of UK sign language, speech, black and white line drawing and symbols to help children learn how to communicate and develop their learning skills. So I won't show the video here today, but you can have a look at their official site of YouTube official TV channels for more details. For today's sessions, I also share some common assistive technology for you to consider to have it on your platform. For example, screen readers, output, screen magnifications, high contrast, colors, speech recognition, voice commands. You can also make reference to the technical guidelines on about the web accessibility guidelines, WCAG, for more on the principal quality accessibility. So what is the requirement set in our guidelines? What we want to achieve through our guidelines? These are a few areas that we would like to encourage our broadcasters to focus on. And let's go through one by one. Okay, setting priority. It will be good to have access to a service for all your program on your platform. But what if we can't have all? Then the high importance genre is to have emergencies announcements, ESA, public service announcement, and new segments to include the access features. If you have all for this genre, and you can consider to have local, have your access service on the local content, kids local contents and learning program, and then talk show as well as entertainments. And continuity. Ensure that the continuity of the access service. We don't, it shall be provided in full instead of certain episode for a certain period of time. For example, I can watch news with sign language today, but you omitted it for the next day. So it will be really confusing and not informative enough. Accuracy. As usual, for broadcast content, we want the content to be accurate. So, and to have a reliable subtitle and captions. Things to avoid is, for example, misspelled word, mismatch or misalignment, or incomplete subtitles, which will lead to confusion or misunderstandings. Language, use of language. We will encourage our broadcaster to provide subtitle and closed caption in Bahasa Melayu and English. Same goes to sign language. Have Malaysia sign language instead of using foreign sign language. I mean, to get sign language service from certified provider, in our guideline, we mentioned that we want our broadcaster to get a sign language service from certified provider. Currently, we have bernama in collaboration with Malaysian Federation of the Deaf and FD to train the sign language interpreter. And we will get you posted if there is any update from this. Information availability. We want to ensure that if you have access service in your platform, you should let people know that you should let your audience know that you have that service. Either indicate in TV channels guide or EPG, or even your web program guide. And next one is the consultation. We always encourage broadcaster to seek opinion and advice from disability group in providing inclusive, accessible content and features. We believe this will help you in creating a better accessibility service and maximize the benefit. And collaborations. There is a need for broadcaster to collaborate with organizations or company that provide TV access. Lastly, awareness. We encourage our broadcaster to provide at least 2 awareness programs a year. It could be education and training on sign language or provision of public awareness on the existing access service that you have, or programs on issue about concerning issue of disability group. Okay. Last but not least, following the issuance of our guideline, we require our TV station to update MCMC on your implementation plan. Don't forget to send us your plan, and MCMC will continue to work with stakeholders to ensure the guideline is benefit to both user and audience. So, government is pushing and improve the access, pushing the improvement of accessibility, and has approved a grant for our industry to feature Malaysian Sign Language interpreter during the new segments, PSA and government program. So currently the implementation of grant disbursements is in the pipeline. We will get you updated once there is any news, once there is decision on the disbursement process. Okay, lastly, last message from myself. We always have alternative to convey message while universal design or inclusive accessibility. So we hope the guideline is not the end, but a start for everyone to fully participate to make accessible content. And that's all from me today, and I will stop here. Is there any question?
Thank you, Ms. Ayin. We would like to open the floor for any questions on Ms. Ong Soyin's presentation. I think we have Gerard from Bernama. Yes, Gerard, can you please open your camera and unmute yourself?
The camera opened and unmuted. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Lovely. Okay, just a quick question about talk shows, because I think news is pretty straightforward. News and maybe coming up with capsules and recorded programs, but talk shows that are going to be repeated and stuff like that. What would be the easiest way, you know, if it comes to technology, in using what do you call it, subtitling? Because I guess for me, one of the bigger problems would be approximating what the person is saying in English. Sometimes how we speak in English, if it's a guest or maybe the anchor or the host, the pronunciation of certain words may differ because of the way we speak in Malaysia. It's in different countries different. So maybe if you heard someone from Scotland say one word, it may sound different. What you're hearing is different. And doing the subtitling, what is the simplest way of doing that? Saying if it's a talk show with one anchor and one guest, or one anchor and two guests, or three guests.
Thank you, Gerard. I guess you are right. Even for YouTube platform, if you can see their cross captions features, sometimes not capturing correctly, I could say. And for talk show purposes, because it's live, right? So if it is a live program, it will be better to have sign language. That is the current, I think, the best solutions that for live programs, because
right.
So,
but if the live program, once it's rebroadcasted, so saying we play a program today, it goes on live, the next broadcast will be, say, a repeat broadcast. So should the subtitling be put in there for that, for the repeat broadcast?
It's actually up to your organization internal arrangement whether you choose to put it in the subtitles or either you still remain with as a service that you have.
Okay, so second question, sorry, I got one more question. Saying if now 3 people are talking, do we put out word for word what they're saying, or like an approximation of what each person is saying?
If you are talking about subtitle, definitely is word to word because
word for word,
because we want our audience to get the original meaning of what the message in the video, in the talk show, in the video, instead of a summary one.
Right. So saying if now I'm speaking and my English is not very good, or my Bahasa Melayu is not very good, and I'm sort of saying it, the message is coming out, the message is clear, but the way it's being said might be grammatically wrong, whatever. So do we put it out word for word then?
Yeah, that is a technical, I think, challenges that not even Malaysia, I guess, even in other countries are having the same issue. So that is a challenge now.
Okay.
Maybe we can, the next sessions we are inviting the technos company. Maybe they have a better ideas that how we could resolve this issue and challenges.
Thank you, Soya. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Gerard. I think we have another question from Bernama as well. Haslinda.
Hi, Haslinda.
Do you mind turning on your camera and unmuting yourself, Haslinda?
Yes, just about to do that. Right. Thank you very much. Also reacting or giving some reaction to what Mr. Gerard Ratnam has just shared with everyone. The concerns here is when we have a sign language instructor or SLI on air, we have limitations with SLIs doing English. All right. So the program that Mr. Gerard Ratnam was referring to was a program in English. Therefore, we know for Bahasa Malaysia, we have no problem. So that's why we have opted to actually request for talk shows to practice on doing subtitling. So we can paraphrase instead of doing it word for word. But we cannot do it live, meaning we can only do it when there is a repeat moments, or a repeat transmission. Yep, but we also face these constraints. To edit and put in the subtitling is quite a bit to be done. All right. However, we work towards doing it, and I think some of our PSAs or in-house production, even documentaries, we have begun doing it. So just wanting to find out if we do put on subtitles, it will be without the ones that we see on films from abroad, where they have things like music, sound of rain pitter-pattering on the roof or something of that kind. Can you please advise, as I think we would keep it to just subtitling and not the other form, as it would be a little bit of a task, and there is cost to having SLIs, which sometimes we have to get the approval of our higher ups. I hope you understand, and probably there is a way of getting us to train our own people, maybe to do the SLI bit to help out with curbing or cutting down on costs. Thank you very much. That's about all that I wanted to put forward and make a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you, Haslina. We understand the challenge, and currently we encourage that you have the sign language, but the challenges, I think we can further explore, and how we can better resolve the challenges that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Haslinda from Bernama, do you have any additional questions? Because we still see the raise hand icon. Oh, Gerard, do you have another question, Gerard?
Yes, just to add on,
Sure.
just one more thing. And this is not specifically open to SOIN, but for anyone who is technologically savvy with this, saying if we have to do subtitling on repeat broadcasts, what would be the simplest way to do it? Because whichever way we've worked on or are working on currently is very time consuming, because we have to listen and type. So this would be one of the biggest challenges, and it's time consuming. So it needs to be, you need to be listening with intent and then typing word for word verbatim. So if there's any technology which is available and it's not expensive, how do we go about acquiring this technology and using it? If it's free, it'll be better. So hoping for some advice from whoever else will be helping us out with information here. Thanks, Soin. Sorry for.
Gerard.
Anyone from the participants who would like to chip in? All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Haslinda. Thank you, Gerard. And thank you, Ms. Ong Soyin. Should there be no more questions, shall we proceed to the next agenda of the day? All right, so the next presentation is entitled Technology Can Help with PWD Accessibility. We have invited one of the pioneers in the broadcast and media industry with over 25 years of experience in content production and operations, where he managed a team of technicians and editors at Astro Malaysia. He achieved key milestones that saw the evolvement of broadcast from standard definition to high definition to ultra high definition 4K in accordance to European Broadcasting Union EBU standards. He also established a self-regulation policy within the Content Code and existing regulatory compliance standards. In 2018, he co-founded Techno Solutions Sdn Bhd, taking a role as content management specialist, focusing on advanced technology trends and solutions in broadcast media. We would like to now call upon the interpreters from Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia to assist on with the translation of the presentation into sign language. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Andrew Kunaselan. Over to you, Andrew.
Hi, good morning, and thank you so much, Mawa. And also, firstly, I would like to thank MCMC and also CMCF Content Forum to actually give me this opportunity to actually present the seminar, one of the topics for access to content for persons with disabilities. Yeah. So yeah, and basically, I think many of the other speakers have actually shared some of the ideas in terms of how actually access to content for persons with disabilities can actually be improved, or even new ideas that can be implemented in terms of making it accessible for persons with impaired visions or even impaired hearing, right? So I'm going to share some of the things that, based on my experience and also based on my knowledge, some of the technologies that's available out there may not be on Malaysian TV, but as you can see now, we have gone into a lot of digital transformation in terms of streaming platforms and all that, right? So that's what I'm going to share for today. And yeah, can I go to the next slide? All right, so basically what I'm going to share is very simple. It's on the basically some overview of how content can be accessible for people with disabilities, the technology, the content providers, which are all the streaming platforms, and also the sights and sounds. So when I say sights and sounds, it's about people who can hear and people who can't hear and people who can't see, right? So these are the things that I'll talk about today. And yeah, can I go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so if you can see, I've got three posters here, right? So if you see from your left, you'll see Parasite, you'll see Nomadland, and you'll see Coda. So what does these three movies have in common? These three movies are actually winners of Best Picture for the Oscars. Parasite for 2020, Nomadland for 2021, and Coda for 2022, right? So these are actually movies that, if you can see, one common all these movies have is they are not blockbusters, right? And they all became very highly viewed because of one of the things is because it went into the streaming platform. It had different type of storylines. It's all about very unique storyline. It's not about having multi-million dollar graphic sequence and all that, right? So it's about simple stories that can actually capture an audience. So that is what happened, and what all these three movies actually, if you can see, they all have, one is a Korean language, one is an English language, and the other one is purely on sign language. Because if you know the story of Coda, it's about a family with a hearing impact, where the little girl actually, the daughter actually helps out in terms of how do they communicate on their day-to-day lives, right? So these are all different ways of communication. One is Korean language, one is sign language. So how do people with so there's a breakthrough in this case in terms of how people are consuming content these days, right? Because it doesn't matter what language, it doesn't matter what types of approach a producer or director actually comes up with a story. If you have the right audience and if you have the right story, it will actually can capture, it can actually win you an Oscar. So that's basically what these three stories actually have in common, right? So yeah, can I go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so when Parasite actually won the Best Picture, right, there was the director, right, of this movie, he came up with a statement. I think the statement was for Hollywood, because I think all this while Hollywood was very into it. It was like a norm that like it has to be like, you know, why do we need subtitles, right? Because a lot of people might not even like to have a subtitle because it seems like a distraction to them, right? So what he meant was, in his context, he said, as once we get over the 1 inch barrier, which is the lower third, that is the 1 inch, which where you see all the subtitles, you will actually be able to witness many more amazing movies, right? So that's what he meant in context. But it can also mean a different thing. Subtitles are actually relevant, and especially in this day and age, there's no more like it's only specifically an English language movie or specifically some other language movie. Actually, if you go and if you go into Netflix right now, or even Amazon, or even Disney, you will see actually so much of different types of content, you know, in different languages, right? Because that has actually broken all barriers in terms of when these streaming platforms has actually broken a lot of barriers in terms of how do people actually have an access to content, and every type of people in whatever, the disabled or the children or even the elderly, everyone can actually enjoy content, right? So that's what the technology has actually done, where content is now very accessible to almost everyone, right? So that's what he meant by once the 1-inch barrier is broken. I think it's already broken. I think it's already been broken, because later I will actually share with you why I say that it's actually already broken, because technology is there and a lot more can be done right now, okay, in terms of how actually people can enjoy and can appreciate content. Okay, following. Okay, can I go to the next slide, please? Next slide, yeah. So now I would like to talk about the technology, right? So now things have become very, very accessible. I can say accessible because I think the word today is accessible, because it's just not accessible to the people with disabilities, also accessible to everyone in terms of how do you share your data, how do you share your content, how do you share a lot of things in terms of remotely. Not necessarily you have to sit in a studio or in a production house for editing, or to do your voice dubbing, or to even do your transfers or whatever. It can be even subtitling. It can be done anywhere. It can be a remote process. That's how it has become right now. It has become technologically very advanced in terms of how we actually how does the process chain works actually in terms of the production chain, in terms of how we can actually automate a lot of stuff. How do we share data from the cloud? It's all in the cloud, and it's easily shared across your team who's working on that content. And in terms of speed, right? In terms of volume, and in terms of data sharing, and how you can remotely operate from anywhere in the world. Just to share one of the way when I say remote operations, right? Remotely operating. We used to have F1 here in Malaysia, right? Previously, when F1 was happening in Malaysia, the F1 team will have to bring so much of tons of equipment, and many I think the workforce itself will go into hundreds just to organize the F1 here, and they have to fly over from all over the world because F1 happens in every part of the world, right? Every part of the world, and they have to actually fly over the whole team, and just imagine the cost involved, the amount of work involved in setting it up and taking it out again. So the last time when they had the F1, basically what happened was they only had like a team of maybe, I don't know, maybe in 10s or 20s. That's all they had. The rest of the team remotely operates from, I don't know, somewhere in another part of the world where they can actually access all these materials in terms of how to organize the entire production, in terms of, because the content has to go to all over, to every part of the world, right? In terms of the broadcast rights and all that. So that's how easy it has become in terms of operating, right? So that's what I would like to actually, in terms of technology. So when we come into people with disabilities, right? How do we actually, how can actually technology help them in terms of being able to actually appreciate or even enjoy a content, right? So like I think previous speaker, I think Soyin, right, also spoke about closed captioning and sign languages and stuff like that to be implemented into a content. So these are actually some parts of it. I think there's a lot other parts of it, I think, which we as I don't know, as a normal person, right, we sometimes tend to ignore all the tabs or the buttons that actually you see when you click that movie info. You will see actually, okay, what does it feature? What does this particular movie, okay, let's say Top Gun, right? Okay, what does Top Gun actually feature in terms of accessibility, right? So that's where I will actually share with you guys in the following slide on what are the accessibility features that actually now most of the streaming providers actually have that in their platform, right? So yeah, can I go to the next slide, please? right? So these are actually some of the, I've only selected these 4 streaming service providers, right? Basically Amazon Prime Video, Netflix, Apple TV, and Disney, right? So these are actually, why I chose these 4 is because these are the main platforms that's actually available in Malaysia, which is quite, I think I could say that it's quite, what do you call that, famous, I mean, in terms of popular, in terms of the viewers to actually sign up for all these services. And what do they provide? So these are the 4 big players currently in the market, which actually provide a lot of accessible options in terms of how do actually in terms of reach itself. The reach can be what you call that, limitless, right? The reach can be limitless because they target people with different languages. They target people with disabilities. They target with all sort of genres or even all sort of types of viewers, right? So that's what, again, that's what technology has actually compared to the conventional TV that we used to watch. These streaming platforms actually has changed in a lot of ways. Why do you think that Parasite actually won the Best Picture? It could be partly because of the streaming platforms, because the reach is there, and people have started to watch all sort of language content in different types of language, like the Squid Game, right? Another Korean popular program, right? Which nobody thought it can be one of the top shows, right? And became a hit. And even now, our own local programs, you can watch it on Netflix, right? Our own local Malay movies is now available on Netflix. So it's basically going around the world, right? So that's where I'm saying that technology has made it limitless in terms of how we can actually reach an audience. Okay, particularly in this case, we are saying people with disabilities, right? So how can we reach them, and how can we make it accessible for them? And yeah, so this is actually some of the streaming platforms currently in Malaysia that actually is quite popular, I guess. Yeah. So can I go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So now we'll talk about the sights and sounds, right? So if you can see, these are some of the icons that you will see in any of the streaming platforms, okay? And okay, before I go there, I would like to say that why am I just focusing on the streaming platform? Because I don't think most of our local broadcasters like Astro or even the terrestrial TV, right? I don't think they have a lot of these features, because yes, like the lady in Bernama just now said that the cost, the cost is actually to get all these features, or even to get the content for all these features, it can be costly. Also resources, right? And also talent, right? Because these require talent, okay? And later on, I will be focusing mainly on the AD and SDH, right? And I will also give you details on what does AD and SDH means, and what are the other ones that which I will not be focusing much, which is an AAC. I think Soyin just now gave a different meaning for an AAC, but this is actually is an advanced audio coding, right? So AAC is because when you see the tab, on your movie info on Netflix or on Disney, if you see an AAC, it means advanced audio, right? It's actually basically an enhanced version of a sound of MP3. Okay, so normally we talk about MP3, which is the sound for mobile devices or whatever, right? So because now, if you can see, even your mobile devices have become very technologically advanced in terms of the sound and all that, right? Even the video, right? So even the screen. So these are things that actually, even I think some of them even can say Dolby Vision, right? So that's and Dolby Atmos, right? So these are some of the features that technologically, which is very advanced right now. And what does actually Dolby Atmos gives you? It gives you a surround sound, not only surround sound, but it also gives you a sound from the that comes from the top. So basically you have speakers on top as well, on top of you, which actually gives you a surround environment experience in terms of how do you actually experience sound, right? So especially people with impaired hearing, right? The hard of hearing. So these are the people that actually will be able to actually visualize or even feel the sound, right? So these are the things that actually technologically, a lot of things has been very advanced right now and is available right now, right? Yeah, and I would also like to talk, can I go to the next slide? Yeah. All right. So I would like, okay, okay, now we come to the sights and sounds, right? So we have got these two basic, which is the SDH and AD. Before I go to AD, I would like to talk a little bit about SDH. Okay, what does SDH means? Okay, so earlier Soyin actually mentioned closed caption. Okay, there's a difference between closed caption and SDH. Okay, what we normally watch is closed captions. In Malaysian TV and all that, in Astro, if you're watching, you will actually be watching closed caption. What does closed caption means? Closed caption means it's a standard subtitling, which you can have multiple subtitles, where you can actually have a choice of disabling the subtitles or even selecting a different language. Let's say if you want to watch subtitles in English or even Mandarin or even Malay, right, in BM. So you can actually select the subtitles that you want, okay? So that is what you meant by closed caption. And there's another one which is open caption, right? Open caption is something that it's already burnt into the video, right? Which sometimes you have it a lot on YouTube's, right? So because they will actually burn it in. So closed caption is something that you will find it very common in, especially in Astro shows or even in the terrestrial TV, right? So, and how does SDH differs in terms of closed caption? Okay, and if you go into your Netflix now, and if you go into, I think a lot of people, I mean, we always, I think, we're quite ignorant about all the tabs right there, which it may not make any sense to us because, you know, so when you go in and you see that, if you see SDH, it is meant for subtitles for the deaf and the hard of hearing. Okay, that's what it means, subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing. And that is specialized for people with these disabilities, which actually gives you a little bit more than compared to a closed caption, because that's what it gives you for SDH, right? And I'll talk more detail about SDH later on in the next slide. And let's talk a little bit about AD. Okay, so AD stands for audio description. Can we go back to the, yeah, sorry, thanks. AD stands for audio description, right? Which refers to track describing what's actually happening on the screen. It's purely for people with who's actually visually impaired, can be blind, can be people with low vision, right? So when we say people with disabilities, right, it can be people who are also deaf, there are people also blind, there are also people with hard of hearing, and there are also people with low vision, right? So these are the technologies or even the features that can actually help people with this sort of disabilities to actually enjoy a movie, understand a movie, and also be able to appreciate and appreciate the content, right? So these are the two key features that actually, if you go into any of the streaming platforms, you will see this, and this is where you can actually select them. And especially for all the new contents, if you see all the new contents right now, you will get these features in without doubt. You will have this, and all you need to do is to select that, and you will be able to access these features, right? Can I go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So the difference between closed captions and SDH, right? Okay, like I mentioned before, closed captions, you may not have a lot of details. Like I said, it also involves talent, because there is subtitlists will need to be trained in terms of, because there are certain criteria, requirements in terms of how do you actually produce a subtitle for SDH, right? So the closed captions is very standard. You can actually just have the subtitles without even mentioning certain things like the person's name. Because normally, okay, for example, right, you have two speakers speaking. Basically, you just put a dash and then the speaker one speaks and dash. You type out a sentence and speaker two speaks, right? But in an SDH, what you have is you have actually the person's name. You may have Jane and you may have John. Okay, so the first sentence you may have Jane, okay, speaking the first sentence, and you may have John speaking the second sentence. So there are two speakers. So a person who actually has hearing disability, right, will be able to actually know actually, oh, okay, there's two person talking, and this is what actually they're saying. So they can actually, if you don't have the names there, you wouldn't know who's talking what, right? So and there are also colors involved in it. Certain color codes in terms of for certain what do you call that, attributes, right? So that also differs in for SDH. And you also have all different sounds, like a thunderstorm, like there's a lot of crowd sound at the back, and there's like a train moving on the background, and the train sound and all that. So all these will actually give a person who actually cannot hear to actually visualize the content of things that's happening in that movie actually, right? So it gives them a feel of what actually is basically is happening in that particular scene or the movie. So yeah, so that is actually in terms of subtitles, right? So it's very descriptive in terms of actually what the context of the movie or what's actually happening in every scene of the movie. So that's how actually a person with disability will be able to actually enjoy a movie, will be able to actually understand the movie in terms of the content, right? So so that's what the difference, like if you see an example at the bottom, right? Yeah, there's a phone rings from the bedroom, right? And Sarah actually just goes off to go and pick it up, right? So these are all descriptions that actually helps a person with who has disabilities to actually be able to understand, oh, okay, this is what is actually happening in the movie, right? So that's how actually SDH subtitling actually helps a person who has impaired hearing or who's deaf, will be able to actually enjoy a movie and also be able to understand in context what actually the movie is all about, right? So that is SDH. Can I go to the next slide? Right. So the definition of subtitling for the deaf and the hard of hearing, like I think I've already mentioned it before, right? So it's basically like what it states here. It's a non-verbal sounds like laughter, music, and these are all the individual speakers. So these are all the descriptive things that it will be added on into the SDH. So this is, again, comes back to the talent or the expertise of a subtitlist who is trained to be able to identify all these sounds and actually put it into words. So it's just not anyone can do it. It's again, it's a talent, right? It's a trained specialist to do that. And okay, Okay, I didn't even know this, right? So this is something that I also when I searched for some of the material that I wanted to present today, and for people who are deaf, it's actually an uppercase D, right? It's a capital, okay, which has an hearing loss. But people who are actually the hard of hearing, which is actually they use a D, a lowercase, okay. So this is how actually the terminology is being used in terms of how we can actually make it easier to identify who do we target how do when we are communicating to certain people, right? So this is actually basically the definition of subtitles for the hard of hearing, and we call it SDH. When you go into the streaming platforms, when you see the tab SDH, that's what it means, right? Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So SDH, yeah. Again, I think like what I mentioned earlier, right? So it's about sound effects, it's about speaker identification, it's about music. Okay, these are the three elements that actually makes into an SDH subtitle. The gunshots, the dog barking, the ringing phones, the beeping text, lightsabers, all these are sounds that actually you can recreate in a text form, right? And speaker identification, okay? Saying that who is actually speaking, you don't want to confuse someone who's watching to not know actually what is being said by whom, right? So that is one, speaker identification. And the music. Normally, when there's a song playing, you will actually have the music icon, right? The symbol. So that's what actually tells you about when someone can't hear, they know there's a music playing, or even there's a lyrics of the song, right? And you have that music icon there, okay, the notes. So that will actually, there's a song playing on the background, or maybe there's someone is singing that song, right? So these are all the elements that actually goes into the making of SDH subtitles, right? So the next slide, please. Okay, who does this benefit, right? When we talk about SDH subtitles, actually sometimes it's just not people with hearing loss or the hard of hearing. It can also we know there's a lot of people right now, they're on their mobile phones, they're on their LRTs and all that. They'll be actually watching content without even any sound, right? And what do they watch? They watch subtitles, right? So that they can understand what they're watching. And there's millions of viewers out there. English may not even their first language, right? When they are watching, or some other languages, when they're watching some other languages. So they might have English subtitles, or they might have BM subtitles. So this is how, as you can see, studies shows that the reading while listening improve retention by up to 60%, right? So this is also people educate themselves by actually looking at subtitles. It's just like reading a book, right? So yeah, so that's one of the benefits. And children's learning to read, right? So these are also when people the children are actually watching some programs. They'll be able to comprehend it even much more easier because they actually can read, and they can read. They'll become good at reading, or even be able to understand. They'll have a different type of skills in terms of word recognition in a way, right? So these are some of the benefits for subtitles in general. Also SDH, right? Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay. Now we come to the AD, right? So AD stands for audio description. which is meant for people with who are visually impaired, and it's actually key to reveal detailed information that people with sight are not able to actually consume without a thought, right? So these are the things that actually how actually AD actually helps people with visually impaired. So what does AD means? I think some of the speakers previously have actually given the meaning of that. Is just to repeat, is basically provide information on visual content that is considered essential to the comprehension of program. Okay, in these cases, not providing AD would inhibit a blind or visually impaired individuals from gaining a complete understanding of the given program, right? So basically, that's what AD means. And the description of the media involves the interspersion of audio snippets. Okay, what it means is during a content, you will have empty spaces, right? When there's no audio. This is where when the video is playing, when there is actually a picture there, which actually there's no audio, there will be an audio snippet, there will be an audio description inserted in that particular frame or scene to say that, okay, what's actually happening on the background of the video? Why, what is the context of that particular video without a sound, right? So that's how it helps a person who's visually impaired be able to understand what's happening on the movie or on the program. Okay, again, this is to allow the individual to benefit of the description without sacrificing the information in the existing content, right? So that's what the definition of audio description means. And can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so audio description is a narration of meaningful visual information in the video to provide context, clarify speakers, to articulate visual elements, to imagine an alternative text for videos. Okay, often people can understand much of the video's content merely by listening, okay, to its audio. However, if a video includes content that is only presented visually but not, but such as on-screen text, graphics, or actions that are not obvious from the audio, this visual information must be described in order to be able to be accessible to people who are unable to see it. Okay, so people who can't see, like what I mentioned earlier, right? People who actually cannot see what's actually happening, right? They need to actually understand the story that's actually been happening. So if you want to follow a story, right, but there's a blank, a person, just imagine a person who can't see, right? They're actually concentrating on a video, but then there's nothing happening in terms of audio. Okay, but how would they be able to visualize actually what's happening? Oh, okay, is there a pause in the video? Is it like the end of the movie, or is it something is wrong with the video, or what? You know, so when there's a void there, right, in terms of the audio, so this is where the audio description will come in to describe what is actually happening in that video, to be able to actually narrate in terms of the context of the movie, right? Maybe there's someone, something that's happening. Okay, one good example, a movie that describes, which I think audio description plays a very, very big role for a movie that's called A Quiet Place, right? I think most of you would have watched it. I think there's A Quiet Place 2 right now. A Quiet Place, right? That movie, throughout the movie, there's so much of quietness in that movie, right? So because that's what the movie is all about. You cannot make a sound, right? When you make a sound, the alien is going to come and get you, right? So the entire movie is going to be silent. And how does a person who is actually just imagine a person who's visually impaired and a person who is, has a hard of hearing, right? So how would they actually not able to see or hear, how would they actually enjoy this kind of movie? Okay, this is where the audio description comes in to actually explain what is actually happening throughout the video. And but for the person who's actually cannot hear, right, how would they enjoy this movie? Because it's mainly about sound effects. Okay, purely the movie is all about sound effects, because that's how they play music and sound effects. And even music is very, very minimal. Okay, it's all about sound effects. So this is where the text comes in, the SDH text comes in to actually say, okay, who is doing what, what's happening when, right? So this is how it actually helps someone to actually enjoy a movie, which is because now all kinds of movies are coming out, right? So that's why A Quiet Place is a very good example, how actually a person with disability can actually enjoy a movie which is called A Quiet Place, right? So that's how I think it's a very good example, that movie itself. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Right, who actually does benefit from this audio description, right? Okay, who benefits? Audio description is okay. One of the things is people with certain cognitive disabilities. Okay, and not necessarily people with visually impaired. It can also people with cognitive disabilities, which find it hard to actually comprehend certain things or even understand certain things, which is very slow in processing certain things, right? So these are actually can also benefit people with cognitive disabilities. And imagine trying to enjoy a TV show, movie, or even a live performance, but not being able to see it. Yeah, right. So it will be challenging to gain a complete understanding of what is actually happening. You would be like missing a lot of stuff, right? A lot of crucial information that's expressed visually through gestures, through character actions, through sceneries, okay, and rather than through audio, right? And this is also I think it's by the Howard actually came up with a digital accessibility policy that cites the web content accessibility guidelines with these guidelines are actually implemented. So that's why they say it's web content. So if I'm not mistaken, streaming platforms are also partly called as the web content, right? Because you're streaming. So these standards are already in place. That's why most of the Hollywood movies are all currently produced with these features, right? Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. So I think I've come to the end of my presentation, right? It's 11:30. I think I'm on my on track. Okay.
Yes, so, you are.
Okay. So basically, okay, these screenshots, right? Okay, what I've been talking earlier, I'm just going to share you some of the screenshots. Okay, people might say, hey, I don't see a lot of SDH, I don't see a lot of languages or all that. So if you go into any of Netflix or Disney or Star, whatever, right? When you go and you click all these things, you will see, just check out the subtitles that's available out there. There's Chinese, there's Cantonese, there's English, there's Arabic, there's Finnish, and every one of it has got SDH. Just imagine, every one of it has got SDH. And if you move to the last screenshot, right? It has got Dolby, it's got AD, it's got AAC. Just imagine, it's got French, it's got German, it's got, just name it. That's what I've been saying, is limitless, right? Technology has made it easy for all these things to be done in a much more speed manner, in a much more a bigger volume and remotely. Yeah, so that's what technology has actually, I think it has given a lot of advancement in terms of giving this kind of features for people with actually disabilities, right? So where they can actually enjoy. So that's where I believe that the streaming platforms has done something good for a lot of people, where they have actually taken this taken the reach to actually to places that I think we have not even imagined, right? So that's why I think it has given a lot of benefit to a lot of people that actually right now they can actually enjoy content. Yeah, so I think that's my end of my presentation today. Okay, if any questions, please do share, and I can try my best to actually answer that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Andrew, for the presentation. We would like to open the floor for any questions from the participants today. Are there any questions for Mr. Andrew?
Yeah, before any questions, right? Because I think Gerard just now, I would like to actually answer Gerard's question in terms of, he was saying that, okay, subtitling, because sometimes it takes a lot of time doing subtitles, right? Because when you're doing conventional subtitling, like how we used to do those days, one movie normally takes 3, 4, even 5 days to complete one movie, which is, let's say, about 2 hours, right? It takes you at least about 3 to 4 days to actually complete one subtitle file for a movie. In this day and age, when we are talking about AI subtitling, right? So there is systems, or even there is solutions that actually can actually do subtitling. You might be amazed. Maybe Gerard, you can call me when you're free, and maybe I can explain to you how that works, especially if you're doing English. Translating to some other languages, you may not get, okay, when you're doing to Malay, you may not get 100%, because sometimes, you know, the reason why I say it sometimes the AI doesn't work very well with BM is because sometimes we like to roja our language, right? So, and we talk in different dialects or different slang or whatever. So when you speak in this kind of language, it might get a bit confused. So let's say if you translate, if you do an AI subtitling for an English movie, and you can actually automate the transcript, it gives you a perfect transcription of that, what is spoken in that content, right? So that's how actually it is. I think it takes even maybe less than a day even to produce one subtitles these days. So that's why people can actually produce much more, and that's why I think technology has been so much advanced in terms of Haslinda, right? So,
yes.
Right.
Let's welcome Haslinda from Bernama. Would you like to pose your question, Haslinda?
Yes. I would like to ask this. Is this service free of charge, or there is a fee to it? Because that's our main concern, because it makes us have overheads. Therefore, if we were to use this technology that you have just mentioned, sir, is it something that we have to look at its fee? Thank you.
So yeah, subtitles can be now, I think subtitles, right? Generally subtitles, a lot of people are doing it from home these days, right? So they don't have to actually have a specific, and now with the internet speed and everything, you can do it from your home. There are so many different solutions, free solutions like subtitle edit. Is one of the free solutions that you can actually has some AI elements there, which you can try, which is free. And there's the one that I'm talking about is Limecraft, which is a paid subscription base, which gives you automated transcription. It gives you automated translation. Right, so these are the things that actually it gives you a lot of different features in terms of automating it, right? So maybe it may not be 100%, but it actually reduces your time of processing. Especially a lot of people conventionally, when they do their subtitles, they have a lot of challenges when they want to do set their timing. Okay, so when somebody is talking, right, you need to go back and forth, you need to adjust your timing, and you need to make it like sync to that voice that's speaking, right? So this one, it doesn't. It gives you the spotting rules that you set that actually perfects the timing. So you do not have to go back and adjust the timing. So that a lot of time saved there. Okay, so just not transcription or translation, also in terms of the timing of the subtitles. So that's how actually technology actually can help you to speed up. Yeah, but this is actually Linecraft is actually a paid subscription. Yeah, Gerard is in.
Yeah, so sorry, I just walked out to the washroom just now. I just apologize because someone heard you say something about answer to my question. But I guess going back to subtitling, we would like to find a way where we can do it just using the available technology we have without incurring costs to the government. We are trying to do that. We're trying to do that, especially for talk shows. We want to try to put it on talk shows. So that would be our challenge. If it's a one-on-one, would be pretty straightforward. But if it's a panel of 3 people, 4 people, that's when I think we will start having challenges. Even with the one-on-one, we were just doing some test runs, and it's very, very time consuming at this point. Yeah. So yeah, any input from you, any input at all would be welcome.
Okay, just maybe I'll repeat since you walked out a while ago.
So yeah, my apologies for this. Yeah.
No worries. Okay, like I said, there's actually there are options out there, which I think one of them is subtitle edit, which actually gives you a certain element of AI in there as well, which is actually a free software, if I'm not mistaken, which you can actually do your subtitles. It's called subtitle edit. Right. So, but the one that I'm talking about, which actually automates your whole subtitling, is a paid subscription. It's called Linecraft. That actually gives you automated transcription, gives you automated translation, and it also automates your timing in terms of how do you actually, when someone speaks, how do you sync up with your text. So it gives you a lot of benefit in terms of that. Yeah. So you can try.
Yeah.
You can even have a 30-day trial period. You can try it out. If you feel that if it's worth trying it, go ahead, try it. If you think that you are more comfortable doing your subtitle edit, go ahead, try that, because that's a free option.
Okay, just one more question, just to add to what you were saying. So if it's automated, I think therein lies the problem with the way we speak. We are Malaysians, and we've got a speech inherent to the way we live, and our way of talking. Because sometimes we speak in Manglish, and that's all right as long as the message gets across. But when the subtitling happens, if it's automated, does it pick up the words wrongly?
Yes. That's what I also, just to repeat myself again, especially Gerard, you're saying because our Malaysian language, right, is most of the time it's very rojak, right? Especially when it's English or when we speak Malay. So if it's in one single language, you might get the accuracy. But if you are rojak and you put it, because you need to select the transcription language that you want to do, or the transcription, the translation language that you want to actually target to, right? So when you click that, if it's English, it will only recognize the English words. If there's some other Malay words or some other words that's been in there, it will actually give you some other something, or it might not even translate that for you.
Right. Maybe let me just give you an example. Say if I say according, and if I say it fast like us Malaysians, like according to, it might sound like rodin too. It might come out as RODIN. I've seen that happen on YouTube a lot.
Okay. We've done some tests on all those things in terms of different types of languages, English, especially movies, or even some webinars as well. We've done that. So most of the time, it gives you quite a good accuracy, right? So like we've tested even Mandarin. Mandarin, we've got very high percentage of accuracy. Korean, Japanese gives you almost like 90% or even 99% accuracy, right? So we've tested all different languages, and it gives a very good accuracy. But when it comes to maybe BM, I think we may have a little bit of challenges on that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Andrew, and thank you, Hazlinda and Gerard, for the questions. Thank you, everyone. We shall be moving to the next agenda shortly. If there are any further questions for Mr. Andrew, please note down his details as being shared currently. And the details will be shared. Maybe Mr. Andrew, you can share your contact details as well in the chat box for the participants' reference.
I'll do that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Andrew, for the presentation. We have now come to the next agenda, which is our panel discussion. Before we start, just a quick reminder on the cash prizes awaiting to be won by the participants of the seminar today, where we will be selecting 3 of the most active participants to receive these prizes. So all you need to do is just be as engaged as possible during the session. Activities or questions in the chat box will not be considered as active participation. We would like you to unmute your microphone and start asking questions verbally. So please be vocal and be active. So ladies and gentlemen, today's panel discussion is entitled What PWDs Need. We will be having our helpful interpreters from BIM to assist in translating the panel discussion today. In order to set the stage for the discussion, we would like to share a special presentation which was pre-recorded by Mr. Wong Yun Lung, the Executive Director of the National Council for the Blind Malaysia, NCBM.
Panelists. So today I'm going to explain to you how blind people or persons with visual impairment access television programs. So first, let me introduce my organization. I'm the Executive Director of the National Council for the Blind Malaysia. We are the umbrella body of 5 member organizations in Malaysia. The first one is Malaysian Association for the Blind, St. Nicholas Home for the Blind in Penang, Sabah Society for the Blind, Sarawak Society for the Blind, and the Society of the Blind in Malaysia. So together with all these 5 organizations, we discuss, we plan, and we advocate for meaningful change in Malaysia for the interest of not only persons with visual impairment, but also all persons with disabilities. Okay, I believe most of you will be wondering why blind people watch television, or do blind people watch television? The answer is yes, because we too enjoy television programs. How we enjoy television programs? We listen to the audio and we listen to the nice sound effects that you have on your television program. And in order to get information on the scenes or visual effects on the television, sometimes if we are lucky enough, we have family members and friends, they will share with us. So we can enjoy television. Radio, no problem. Radio is just listening. Okay, so what are the challenges that we face? Of course, most audio do not have most video do not have audio. This is very clear if you watch television, sometimes in the news channel, when they talk about the weather forecast, they just play music and they just display the weather forecast, but without audio. So blind people are unable to know about the audio weather forecast in their area. At the beginning of COVID-19, such things also happen. A lot of information on COVID-19 was not displayed with audio, but at that time we advocated and we discussed with the Ministry of Health, and subsequently a lot of information about COVID-19 on television, especially on RTM, has audio with video, which is very beneficial to blind people. Secondly is most of the visual do not have description. So, for example, we can understand that, you know, like for example, if our PM is speaking or the ministers are speaking, but we are unable to know the environment around, whether what they are wearing or what kind of environment, whether it is in the office environment or outdoor environment or something like that. So this kind of information can be presented in audio form. Okay, so let me share with you how we do it. Okay, so first we will play an audio clip that has only what do you call it, captioning, but without any description.
Hello.
Okay, so from this clip, a blind person like me don't know what's happening. We have no clue, but we can hear a lot of sounds, but we have no clue what is happening. Okay, so now let's listen to the same clip, but this time with audio description, but no video. Let's see what is the effect on you.
From the creators of Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph, Disney. A carrot-nosed, coal-eyed snowman shuffles up to a purple flower peeping out of deep snow.
Ooh, hello.
He takes a deep sniff. His nose lands on a frozen pond. A reindeer looks up and pants like a dog. Seeing the reindeer slip on the ice, the snowman smiles and moves towards him, though actually he's running on the spot. The reindeer falls on his chin. The snowman uses his arm as a crutch. The reindeer paddles his front legs. Head over heels, the snowman crawls along the ice. The reindeer does the breaststroke. The snowman rolls his body, but flips onto his back. The reindeer's tongue sticks to the ice. The snowman hurls his head. Twig arm and reindeer lips tug at the carrot. The carrot flies off and lands in soft snow. The reindeer goes after it with snowman and his body parts hanging on his tail. The snowman puts himself back together again and glumly contemplates his noseless state. The reindeer jams the carrot back in place and pants like a proud puppy. The snowman pats him with his stick-thin arm, then goes to sneeze. He grabs his nose with both hands. His head shoots off. Frozen, coming this winter in 3D.
Okay, from this second clip, a blind person can fully enjoy, but you can't because you cannot see. And definitely, and surely my friends with hearing impairment, they will not know what is happening. But let's now go to a fully inclusive video that has audio and video together.
From the creators of Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph, Disney. A carrot-nosed, coal-eyed snowman shuffles up to a purple flower peeping out of deep snow.
Ooh, hello.
He takes a deep sniff. His nose lands on a frozen pond. A reindeer looks up and pants like a dog. Seeing the reindeer slip on the ice, the snowman smiles and moves towards him, though actually he's running on the spot. The reindeer falls on his chin. The snowman uses his arm as a crutch. The reindeer paddles his front legs. Head over heels, the snowman crawls along the ice. The reindeer does the breaststroke. The snowman rolls his body, but flips onto his back. The reindeer's tongue sticks to the ice. The snowman held his head. Twig arm and reindeer lips tug at the carrot. The carrot flies off and lands in soft snow. The reindeer goes after it with snowman and his body parts hanging on his tail. The snowman puts himself back together again and glumly contemplates his noseless state. The reindeer jams the carrot back in place and pants like a proud puppy. The snowman pats him with his stick-thin arm, then goes to sneeze. He grabs his nose with both hands. His head shoots off. Frozen, coming this winter, in 3D.
Okay, so this is a fully inclusive clip. So it is not difficult. There are a lot of companies that are now making such production. And in some countries, it has been a regulatory requirement for broadcasters to only put on air content like this that are fully accessible for all. Right. So who needs to be involved to realize this dream or this vision of making our TV broadcasting more accessible, fully accessible for all? First, of course, the regulator, MCMC, or whichever organization in the future that regulates TV programming. Of course, the broadcasters, the television broadcasters, they must be ready to provide such services. And then most important, content providers. So content providers now must think of ways how to describe. There are techniques to describe. We don't tell everything because some things the blind person already can listen from the audio. So things that they cannot get from the audio, those are the information that you describe. And there are a lot of techniques that we can conduct training together to train you how to do that. And next is, of course, what do you call it, organization or institution that provides multimedia courses, so that they include accessibility in their degree program, diploma program, or whatever, so that future students, future personnel who will be working in the broadcasting and media industry will be able to understand on accessibility. And of course, organizations for the blind, we can support all these efforts. So my recommendations will be simple, not too difficult. Let's have regular consultation between all stakeholders, the regulators, content provider, broadcasters, training institutions, organizations for persons with disabilities to come up with a concrete plan of action to move this forward. And of course, we also need to train people in providing audio description services. Like, for example, if you train people to provide sign language services, you also need to train people to be able to audio describe. And of course, we organizations for the blind, we also must play our part in training our members, the blind people, the blind community, in order to be able to appreciate audio description. And there are a lot of, before I conclude, there are a lot of audio described movies out there. If you subscribe to paid TV, you can get a lot of audio described. It's not only English, Korean, I know of Korean is very famous now. Chinese, Japanese in our region, Korea, Japan, and China has done a great job in providing audio description, and you will not be stopped. And it is my dream and my vision that one day our Malaysian movies, Malaysian production will be audio described, and this will make business sense for you content providers, because some markets will only buy production that has audio description or fully accessible. So without audio description, you are not fully accessible. So it will make business sense for you to start making it fully, fully accessible. So with that, I will conclude, and I'm sorry I couldn't be present with you because I have some urgent appointment. But I'm happy to be with you again in the future, and let's all work together. And thank you to MCMC for coming up with the Garis Panduan guidelines for accessibility in TV broadcasting, which is a very good effort. Let's work together to make it happen in our Malaysia, our beloved country, Malaysia, because we are all in one family, satu keluarga Malaysia. Thank you.
All right, so that was the pre-recorded video by Mr. Wong Yun Lung, the Executive Director of the National Council for the Blind Malaysia. So let us move on to the panel discussion. Before we start, allow me to introduce the list of panelists for today. Dr. Aida Binti Mohtar, an Associate Professor at the Department of Communications in International Islamic University, IIUM. Mr. Muhammad Sazali bin Syari, the President of Malaysia Federation of the Deaf, MFD, and Ms. Ong Soyin, the Deputy Director of Content Regulation Department, MCMC. Our moderator for the panel discussion will be Ms. Madiha Mahmud, the Executive Director of the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Content Forum of Malaysia. The virtual floor is yours, Ms. Madiha.
Thank you, Mawar. Thank you everyone for being with us up to now in this seminar. I think personally I have been learning quite a lot. I would like to welcome the panelists for today, Encik Sazali, Dr. Aida, Ms. Soyin. Thank you for being with me today. I think what we will do is that we go straight into the nitty-gritty details of our discussion today. An extra thanks to Mr. Wong for having that pre-recorded session. It sort of sets the stage and sets the tone for us. I think the first thing that I would probably like to pose to the panel is when we talk about accessibility for persons with disabilities, some might understand it as ramps for wheelchairs, sign language interpreters on TV, but perhaps you could let us know from your point of view, what best describes accessibility for persons with disabilities? Maybe Encik Sazali, you would like to start? Encik Sazali, are you with us?
What means the freeze?
Oh, okay. In that case, maybe Dr. Aida, in your point of view, what is accessibility? When we talk about accessibility, what should it entail?
Accessibility in terms, thank you so much, Madam Madiha, for the question and for inviting me, of course, CMCF, to this event. It's really an honor to be here. Accessibility meaning, I mean, in this case, of course, it refers to media content, isn't it, right? So how could media content be accessible to persons with disabilities? You've got to make sure that they can see, isn't it, captions, for example, when you create content, like my students have been coming up with several series of webinars on disability inclusion for their course, Professional Speech Communication. And we've been doing it for several semesters. The whole idea is to get them to empathize, to ensure that they empathize with persons with disabilities, to learn from, the parents who have children with disabilities, to learn from experts on, disability inclusion and disability studies and so forth. And what I emphasized in my class before they started approaching speakers for their webinars, so they had to do it in pairs. So usually we have around 15 webinars per semester, because we have about, we usually have about 30 students per class. So what happens is they need to learn about the idea of making their content accessible to persons with disabilities. And in this case, because their webinars, they're on Facebook usually, and on YouTube, and on other social media platforms that we've established, they need to have captions. Yeah. And then of course I have to allocate marks, and I will highlight those who have bothered to do very good captions, because captions could be automatically, generated, and then they could be inaccurate, or, you could correct those captions. Like on TikTok, you can correct captions, and you can correct them on YouTube as well. You can upload, translations of webinars and so forth. So this makes it, and then, but the thing is the attitude towards the idea, they can say, okay, we don't need right? We don't need these marks. And so, we're not going to bother with the captions, because, we can do away with so many of the marks have been allocated. But, to encourage them to include captions, because it's the right thing to do, because you want to make your content accessible, is something I think is challenging, but they realize there's this moral obligation to do so. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ida. Sazali, maybe I could ask you this: do you feel that there is now better awareness, and not just awareness like how Dr. Ida mentioned, Prof. Rosita mentioned in her keynote speech, awareness and empathy? Is there a better understanding now among us that accessibility is not just a value add, but is necessary?
Okay, first and foremost, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for inviting me for this session. So I'm obviously kind of like appreciate, when we are given this platform as stakeholder to be invited by MCMC to discuss on these issues at the same time. So when you talk about the awareness creation and how the betterment of it has been, to improve, on the accessibility for people with disabilities, on media and all the broadcasts. So I think I would actually would like to extend, my gratitude towards what MCMC is doing with the changes of changes of policy, and with the guidelines already been made and all. It's kind of like it helps a lot, to improve. It helps a lot actually to make things better for us, people with disability, to have access to information and technology. So it's like, if you were to ask me on our responsibility, and also with the, the caption, and also with the interpreting services that is actually made available on for the TV stations and all, that is like something which is we really appreciate, because the target group, especially the deaf community, and secondly, firstly is like the deaf community, and the second one are the hard of hearing. We have these two categories within the community, because I kind of like would like to explain when we say about deaf community and also hard of hearing. It's because like for hard of hearing, they have residual hearing, and also they possess a certain level of hearing ability, and that make it possible for them to actually to have the add-on by using devices and all, to actually follow through with the presentation or the broadcast information and everything. So these are actually the two target group. that we really focus on when we talk about deaf community per se. So it's so obvious for this hard of hearing group, they are kind of like exposed to the usage or, to the audio and also to the speech. Yeah. So it's like, for us who are actually deaf, we depend a lot of information transformation via sign language interpreters. Yeah, and that actually would make it possible for us to have access, through the news and also to other platforms. But it is not going to be easy, but but this thing is like, we have to kind of like make a start. Yeah, so you begin with it, and and people starts to actually have the knowledge and awareness on like, okay, deaf people need sign language interpreter. So this is one of the platform that would be good, because people would actually have a different, like acceptance and also understanding towards the needs. Yeah, at the same time also, when viewers are viewing, deaf people are also viewing it, we also have to kind of like maintain within the stakeholders set up to actually do the monitoring. Yeah, because we have to kind of like watch the quality control. We have to make sure, and we have to inform. It's like, for the interpreters, like, the situation and the setup, when they're interpreting, and also that we could have a more kind of like improvise or development in that presentation or the news delivery. So I think earlier on the speaker also a couple of speakers touch on subtitling, touch on the voice recognition and all. And also on closed captioning, yeah. So, yeah, when we talk about live program, when live program is on, we want to have actually access to know what's happening or what is actually going. So before this is it's the TV station are using the analog system, right? And then the subtitling is like someone is actually typing the words, and appear, accordingly. But there are times when there are mistakes in between. But now when we talk about digitalization, there are apps, or even there are ways, technically or technologically, where it could capture, speech, and it could also be kind of like transformed into text. So this kind of program is actually made available. So I think if we were to watch BBC and any other international TV station, and you could see all this happening. So they have like, the real-time captioning, and also the voice recognition, all those, it's made available, but it's in English. Yeah, currently everything is actually made available in it's all in English. So it's kind of like perfectly, suitably pronounced and said accordingly. But that is okay, because they are via BBC, CNN, and also for YouTube. Also, if like there is a logo stating that like CC means it's closed captioning, and that could possibly be actually used by the deaf community. But what we're looking at now is like the local language. Yeah, it's not available, but it's all in English. So if we were to actually use that, the most that they can change is to Indonesian language, closer to kind of like, Malay language. So, but we're not that familiar with Bahasa Indonesia. So we find like, it would be good if it could be actually converted, or there is such a service made available, to change to our local language. If that happened, I would say that would be really, really super. Yeah, because I know it's like what has been said just now about the same language, subtitling. Yeah, we kind of like look forward to it. It's like, BM to BM, yes. So when it's actually been extended, it's like, when it's actually appear on the screen, it would be kind of like, it would be very appropriate for us to actually adapt and accept and also view with the presentation or wherever the program that is on during that time. So another thing is like perhaps maybe to make it possible is also to kind of like have the kind of like dictionary in the local language, which is like, you have the database for that dictionary, and when it been converted to the local language, then it would be lots easier. So because if let's say like, maybe the question will be like, what are the benefits of those? Yeah, I think research has really kind of like proved that, in America itself, subtitling or closed captioning actually helps a lot for an individual to actually improve in the language acquisition. So this is very much I mean, like, interesting, and it's actually, it could actually help a lot. It's like for a person who could hear, perhaps they could also learn on like, how to pronounce the word. It's like, they keep hearing it over and over again, and they could actually improve that way. So for us, we're actually much more prone to using the visual language. We obviously would actually, that will allow us to learn via the closed captioning or the subtitling. Yeah, because I think in 1996, a research was carried out in India. And during that time, they find that the literacy level of the population, the illiterate level is rather high. Yeah, so they thought that, there should be some form of a mechanism that could assist. So during that time, they actually apply the usage of SLS. Yeah, it's like the same language subtitling. So people would actually learn better that way, and they could actually improve the language acquisition. Then it's proven that way, when they did that, it's proven, and the percentage increased after that. So why not, why don't we look at that angle at the same time? We're kind of like gaining the information. We're also at the same time improving with our language skill. I mean, especially for children of, among the deaf community.
That's right.
Because to me, I believe that we start giving them very early exposure towards language acquisition, it will help a lot for them to improve day by day, and they would be able to have the better interest in reading, and everything would actually come handy, and it actually helps a lot. It helps a lot, because technology could do all this part, and we don't have to kind of like crack our heads to see what are the better way, how to do it, and things like that. We don't have to, because digitalization, it's like, it's out there, and it is actually helping a lot.
That's right. Thank you very much, Encik Zazali. That is absolutely what we're looking at here. I think there is better awareness now of the need to have accessibility of content for persons with disabilities. I agree with you that there needs to be more localized efforts and initiatives to make it even more accessible. I think I would like to just direct this question to Ms. Sao Yin. You are obviously a very well-established name in MCMC, having been there for the past 13 years. Could you perhaps share with us why MCMC decided to develop the MCMC guidelines on TV access for PWDs, and what was the process that you had to go through for this?
Thank you, Marwa. The guidelines is actually a part of the initiative and commitment from MCMC to support the national policy. So, in providing the accessibility services. So, in enhancing the inclusivity and also toward the equitable societies. So from supply and demand point of view and commercial context, diversity and inclusion is a growing trend now. So if our licensee does not carry the access feature, they will be left behind from the point of view commercial context. But if from consumers' perspective, it will be good to have the access service, and also it will be a commercial social responsibility as well in that point, and it will benefit to everyone. So that's why we take the initiative to have the guidelines.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sawian. Going back to what I just heard from Encik Sazali just now, obviously where we talk about enhancing the rights of persons with disabilities, it goes beyond accessibility as well. We're talking about, I think what everyone has mentioned, it's not just about awareness, it's also about empathy. Just to share that the Content Forum, we revamped our content code recently. And upon consulting with YB Senator Ras Adiba and our friends from the person with disabilities community, the new content code now has been enhanced to better uphold the rights. And one area of improvement, we'll be departing a bit from accessibility. One area of improvement here is the content itself. So what the content code establishes is that any form of humor or ridicule based on physical, mental, or sensory disability may be offensive, even if no malice is intended. And in the past, we have seen how comedy shows, we have seen even portrayals of PWDs in drama can be over the top and sometimes downright insulting. Dr. Aida, maybe I could ask you, from your experience and observation, what content can be defined as offensive to persons with disabilities? Maybe you have some examples you could share with us?
What content would be offensive if it were to ridicule them in any way, make them look undignified, and the tone that's being used is in a way where it makes them feel small, and and you discriminate how you communicate with persons with between persons with disabilities and typical people. I mean, there's a different tone. Because I remember when I was in the UK and I spoke to a speech therapist, and I suddenly and there was a person who needed therapy. Basically it was my son needed therapy from the speech therapist in the UK, and then I spoke in such a way where I raised my voice a bit because I wanted to emphasize, my intention was to emphasize something. And then he was saying, we have to speak in a dignified manner. We have to treat, him with dignity. And I realized, okay, of course, it's a bit fuzzy, isn't it, between you wanting to emphasize and you wanting to speak in a dignified manner. So where but for him it was I should have softened my tone a bit, and then I've been more self-reflective in terms of how I communicate with them, with persons with disabilities, because I have a son, of course, who has autism, and there's a lot of practice there as well, and I realized that whatever it is, I always put him first. Like, when it comes to asking my children who has eaten, it'll be like, I'll be asking my son first, have you eaten, isn't it, right? And then I'll ask everybody else. And I realized that it's so important to get that right. And then if he doesn't understand, I take time to explain. I use visuals and so forth. It's so important to have that patience. But then being a Muslim, there's a hikmah behind everything that happens. There's that wisdom behind, maybe I would have been an evil person if I didn't have him. You know what I mean? A person who's cold-hearted, insensitive, non-empathetic, but since having him, I realized I've been really patient. And then when I teach as well, to students who are typical in my class. Most of them are typical. Sometimes we do get students with disabilities in our classes. I realize I'm very good at breaking down the complex into something simple, because that's how I teach my son. You know, when I guide him, he's taking his diploma in computer science. So when I guide him, when I show him the way in terms of his assignments, when I explain to him his lecture notes again, after he's listened to a lecture, I realize I'm very good at simplifying the complex. And this is a skill I got ever since I had gotten my son, I realized, and then I also apply it at the workplace. So it's such a useful thing. You have to be careful. We as a communication lecturer, we of course, our objective is to go for effective communication. That's our goal, to communicate effectively. So how do we do that? We've got to look at the nonverbals of the person who's receiving our messages, and see whether or not he or she understands, what we have said. And if he or she does not, then we need to explain it again, isn't it? In such a way where the person would be understanding something better. So we need to put in more effort sometimes when it comes to persons with autism, persons with Down syndrome, perhaps those who have language challenges, and don't take advantage of the position where you know more, you can understand better, and put them down. You being in a more lofty position, and then you ridicule them for not understanding fast enough. I mean, because for me, I suppose as a Muslim, it's a moral obligation for me. I'm being watched, I'm accountable for what I do, and I will feel very bad as a person if I do something unethical, especially to those who are disabled, because I know they're vulnerable. They can't help being in the position that they're in, and we as typical people, we have been given complete capabilities, and we need to use them in the best way we can to help them out, and that is our role. So and without them, we wouldn't be empathetic, we wouldn't care about others, we wouldn't want to help, we wouldn't be compassionate, we wouldn't have all these values. I mean, my students, whenever, I used to have a wheelchair user as a student in one of my courses some time ago. And then I realized that as soon as he comes in, some of the students will get up, open the door, pave the way for him, make sure that the chairs are pushed to the side, so that he can bring his wheelchair in. It's such a nice, beautiful scene.
Right.
Let's say we didn't have him, then we'd be thinking about ourselves more, isn't it? Right? Just barging into the classroom, sitting down, and thinking about ourselves, and that's it. We wouldn't really be thinking about this wheelchair user, because there was in this case where there isn't one. So it's, and I always tell my students, if you see a person who, our students with disabilities in the canteen and so forth, approach them, include them, have a conversation with them. They're humans, like you and me. We need to socialize, but they do have challenges that inhibit socialization from happening. So that's what I've got to say.
Thank you, Dr. Aida. And taking into what you mentioned, it's all about understanding the positions that people are in. And I believe it's also, you better understand the situation when you can imagine yourself being in that situation.
Yes.
And I think like the examples that was so good that it was given twice today, like watching a movie, the snowman in Frozen. In situations where I've had that before, where I'm watching a movie, you pay the ticket for it and suddenly no sound comes out, and then you realize I'm not going to get the full value of this movie if they don't fix it. And I think one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, Doctor, being somebody who works with students and young people a lot, do you feel that students, or might be a bit of a controversial question here, but do you think that our younger generation is now more aware of these things than perhaps the older generation? And do you think it's because of inclusivity that we've seen growing these days?
I would think that social media has played a big role in creating greater awareness amongst our young students, our youngsters, the youth, because sometimes I ask in class, are you aware of persons with disabilities? And anyone, and they would say, yeah, I know Zarina Zainuddin's sons, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And because she posts a lot about her life, isn't it, on Instagram. And then Adam Autism Family. So, and Lukman Autism Cafe Project, Adli. So they know about these different case studies from social media. And they have, of course, gone further, some of them, because they've been asked to interview them, these people, to find out more. So, I would think they're more aware because of the exposure. But like I told them, being aware on its own is not good enough. You've got to also help. Yeah. There was a time when we wanted to visit an NGO, NASOM. I think we wanted to visit NASOM, but because of COVID, we sort of had to, and some students were not on campus, we had to scale back a bit and we had to postpone it as well. But, it's that kind of thing. It's not only to create awareness, it's, to also do something about it, to contribute in different ways other than, helping to create awareness, that I've been encouraging them to do. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Aida. You raised a very good point here about how we have now social media platforms. And Encik Sazali, I would like to direct this question to you. Content is now being offered on multiple platforms. So it's not just TV and radio. We have social media and online sources. So we're not just getting information and entertainment purely on traditional platforms. So with YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, people are now content creators on those platforms. These avenues bring new challenges for persons with disabilities, or has it offered persons with disabilities better tools to be connected and engaged? Encik Sazali.
Oh, okay, yep. It's I would say that, yeah, it's pretty perfect at this moment of time, yeah, the development and all, and easy access for us. When we talk about communication, information, technology, per se, this would actually help a lot. And it's like communication, it has got to be via two parties. Yeah, it's like me communicating to you and you to me. So this could actually help in a way. It's like we're looking at the kind of like to improve the standard of living or to improve the person's quality of life and all. So this kind of it's like this kind of points or values, it actually benefit a lot. So like for me, I mean, for us deaf people, when you talk about accessible information or communication, when we cannot hear, there are always limitations to this. It's like, we're a language minority. So there are a lot of things also that we have to actually kind of like catch, in between as we go on in life. So majority of the deaf individuals in the deaf community, I would say that, we are kind of like all with gadgets. We're kind of like, follow very closely with the development and with the gadgets, what they have, and, what is it that is suitable for us. And, we could actually apply this and try this. And, it's a couple of things like, downloading application and making it possible to have, for us to actually share and also have access to all this. And this actually, in a way, it helps a lot. But we are looking also at the angle where obviously we want the best because we actually have the right towards that. It's like we're paying this license or, to have access to it. We're paying to, the government. We're paying to the service provider, the broadcaster. So I mean, like, don't you think that we have the right to actually give our viewpoints if we're not satisfied with it? Yeah, or it's like, it's yeah, we knew that for the fact that some would say no, it's pretty costly to do this, it's
Yes.
pretty costly to make these changes and things like that. But now it's like when you have, I mean, like government encourage, maybe there is way for companies, private sectors to be involved via CSR and things like that, and they give opportunity for them to actually get the mileage by advertising their company, or this session or this captioning or interpretation being sponsored by who and who is always actually those actually they could actually have that kind of mileage. So that would actually, to me, I believe that would encourage more and more companies or private sectors to come in and actually to assist and to provide the best, for us to have access to all these platforms. But one thing that, we have to focus, we have to focus fully when we talk about, sorry, excuse me. When I mentioned about the SLS just now, yeah? So if let's say the session or the program, if it's in that particular language, so the subtitling would be the same. That's what we want to actually see. That so regardless on social media and all, it's like the accessibility right now is like pretty large, or larger than ever. So this would actually it helps a lot. Sorry. This would actually help a lot for us, to be part of the community, to improve, because it is another way of it helps a lot for us to learn and also to improve, and have a better quality of life.
Correct. Thank you. Are you right, Pozraida? You might want a little bit of a break there. Thank you very much, Encik Zazali, for that. And I think what Encik Zazali has answered just now has basically sort of responded to a question that we see in the chat from MCMC. I think Encik Zachary asked, his question is, what are the panel members' views about local broadcasters' concerns about the financial implications of implementing accessibility measures? And to what extent are these concerns justified? And I think Encik Zazali rightfully pointed out that, financial implications, though they are there, the benefits of investing in this is much bigger. And there are other ways to offset these financial implications, maybe through the government's incentives, or maybe through getting sponsorship for this as part of CSR. Encik Zazali or Dr. Aida, do you have anything else you would like to add to respond to this question about how do we appease broadcasters who might think this is a bit of an investment for us to go for these reasonable accommodations?
I think the whole idea that we have this thing called CSR as well as in organizations, and we always claim that if we don't have a budget for something, it's a good thing to do. We contribute, our in other ways we use our energy, of course, to contribute to something, and then it can be reported. Why can't you report this? What I mean, in your annual reports, in your CSR report. And then the thing is, when you communicate to people at the level of the United Nations, or in globally, like for me, when I studied in the UK, I studied in Australia, the attitude towards inclusivity is wonderful. I mean, it's actually people will look up to you as an organization. Don't you want to be at the same level as other organizations on the global platform in terms of being inclusive? I mean, I just wrote a paper on in the US, where they have the Disability Equality Index. They even different brands rate how inclusive they are, and they show it off. Why can't you, go for something like that? It's something to be shown off. It's something that would attract investors because you are a caring organization. It would attract, persons with disabilities to work with you. And this is something that we need to increase as part of our, social obligation, moral obligation, isn't it? Yeah. And you speak to, people from the West, and you say you're working with an organization that's inclusive, that is very fashionable. It's very, it's the brand reputation will be positive. People will look up to you. In the US, it's, people are fighting to be rated high in terms of being inclusive according to the DEI. So I don't, because the thing is, we probably don't have a proper structure, because I compared it with Malaysian organizations, and I realized that we don't have a way of measuring how inclusive our organizations are. And hence, it's something that some organizations do, but other organizations don't do. And, so what? Why should we do it? But in the US, it's very fashionable. People are, a lot of big brands, Boeing and so forth, are really fighting to be at the top of the inclusive index.
Right.
They even have an index to do that. Yeah.
Right. I think you're correct. I mean, when people talk about CSR, you have, companies showing off their environmental standards, showing off, how they are helping orphanages and animal rights and all that. So, having inclusivity as one of the causes would be something that you should, be proud of as well.
Yes.
I think we have a question from the floor from Bernama. Hazlinda, would you like to ask your question? Go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, I'm here now. Right.
Okay.
Just listening to what was shared, it is indeed something that we would like to be part of from the broadcast side. However, we need our bosses to actually attend this, because they're the ones who will give the approval for such RM investments. We have no ability to say that we have to do this, we have to do that. And the thing is, some of us believe that this is definitely a need, but we still have that RM factor, which I believe it's not just wanting to brand ourselves as the best in the environment within the industry players, but also to make sure that it is workable, it is doable, as it is to even consider doing this is something that most of us have put forward repeatedly, but it needs more the human resources involved, the time involved, and especially when you're doing broadcast, which is live, it is being transmitted immediately. So it's not something that is easily done. Probably technology would help us in time to come. But as it is, we are trying our very best. The best that we can do is something which is not in totality the best for all different categories of PWDs. I believe that this is indeed a good thing to put forward when we have the means to get budgeting for new things next year. But times have been bad with COVID, which has yet just left us and not really left us really, in the actual sense of the word. Budgets have been slashed. Even we talk about being realistic about this. So these are extra things. We want to do more. I wish there was a special channel just to assist us to do this and have the budget to do this. Anyway, I just hope that this thing will be better in the very near future. So I just hope that the investment bit is something that some companies would be able to sponsor and be the entity or the party that plays the better role to assist broadcast stations like ours to make it better for PWDs, because one day as we grow older we'll be a PWD as well, and maybe many has not realized this. I feel for the community, but I hope that we can help each other to make this happen, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Puan Hazlina. That was very well put. I think, I understand the position, and I'm actually quite, it's quite good. It's quite heartwarming to see how broadcasters here with us today, you are allies and advocates for this. You want this to be done. And I suppose the biggest challenge, like what you mentioned, is just purely the money behind it. And then, Dr. Ida Encik Sazali has mentioned how we can sort of have workarounds around this, but maybe Ms. Sao Yin, I would probably like to direct the question to you. Other than the guidelines that MCMC has provided, maybe you'd like to share what are the other plans or initiatives from the government or from MCMC to assist broadcasters in this, or to further enhance the rights of persons with disabilities in content.
Thank you, Marwa. Yes, we are actually also trying to get the government to continue to provide the grant for sign language. And so we'll see how. And for the forward plan, MCMC actually working hard to upgrade our content to be accessible content, where our website will be upgrading with the accessible features. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. Thanks for that. I think we also have another question. Ms. Nithya, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, I'm Nithya from MCMC. Just adding on to Ms. Ong Soyin's question, actually, I'm part of the member working on the upgrading the website for accessibility service for MCMC website. So being the members who are experienced in this field, right, is there a particular SaaS software service that the professionals would like to recommend? Because we do have desktop research, of course, like Userway, Audio Eye, and Accessibility, and sort those about 6 to 7 recommended SaaS. But is there something that is coming from the user point of view that this particular SaaS is highly recommended and it actually caters to your need in terms of visual and audio impaired people?
Thank you, Ms. Nithya. Encik Sazali or Dr. Ida, are there any recommendations that you'd like to make on your side from the user point of view?
From Encik Sazali?
Yes, please.
Just also to have, to kind of like share with you, on the current trend now. It's, I think, some of the website or some of the friendly or accessible website where, we have the choice or selection to just press if we want it to be in sign language. So just press the button where sign language translation or interpretation would actually appear. But I think for our blind friend, I mean, it's going to be a little bit complicating in the sense that, which to press, which button, and which site and things like that. There's like explanation got to be given. So that one is like, it has got to come with audio explanation. But whereas for us, I mean, for the deaf, we want to have access. I mean, like if MCMC wanted to make it accessible, on the website or any other information based channel or things like that, we're kind of like ever willing to work together and assist and also support to see which that we could actually kind of like touch on when you talk about accessibility for information for the target group.
Thank you. Thank you, Encik Sazali. Ms. Nithya, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Ms. Ida, if you have anything to add on, do give us some info too.
With regards to what users can expect out of, I was looking at the IIUM website just now, and we have different contrasts, we have font sizes that we can, change, and we have different contrasts. Those are the main features of our website. Of course, when we promote, we have a disability inclusion policy at the IIUM, at our university, so we need to, be inclusive in many ways, and this is one of the ways in order to ensure that the website can be read easily. it would, I suppose it goes across, there's so many different types of disabilities, and hence there's so many different ways we could accommodate. I would go, there are also screen readers as well, isn't it, that we can install and ensure that our text on social media, on websites can be, can have its audio form, yeah? And then, people can maneuver and understand that they're different. They can see the different, or listen to the different icons, the fact that there are icons and so forth on the website and so forth on social media and whatever. And the thing is, I suppose we have so many features, but to encourage people to, ensure that the text, for example, is simple enough. For example, if there are images, there are descriptions to go with the images so that they can be read. Yeah. And then if there are hashtags, it means that there must be like they call it a camel form of hashtag, where the first letter of each word in a hashtag has to be in capital letters, for example. Yeah. And the captions, I'm very particular about the captions because I tell my students there are good captions and bad captions, and there are no captions. So the captions, the best captions would be those that you have corrected, you have uploaded the correct versions, accurate captions. There's nothing more irritating than reading captions which are half accurate. I said, what's the point of having captions for the sake of it? So those are some of the things, like for my son with autism, the captions help a lot. The captions help a lot. The font size will help a lot. The white space on websites will help a lot for him, because then he's not overwhelmed by the narrative, the large number of words, because when he sees a lot of words, like in a novel, he gets overwhelmed. So you need to sort of have more white spaces, more bullets, larger font, have captions, for videos to help him, be guided. They're going through so much, what we can help, we help. I know there's the money issue that comes in and so forth, but you can always have interns to help you. You know what I mean? There's always a way. Yeah, there's always a way, I feel. And that we can help them, and it means a lot to them. And the thing is, so it enables them to be included, to be able to access information, be entertained, make their quality of life better. How more satisfying is that? It's so satisfying. It's worth the effort and the money. If you could get sponsors to come in, if you could allocate your budget, every year for this purpose, for a good cause, why not? And then you can report it and show it off to, of course, there are benefits to this for everybody. It should be a win-win situation that we're looking at. So it's worth the effort, the time, and of course, they're interns. I have students who are interns. So, we have interns who can help with the captions or with, other aspects to make the content more accessible. Yeah, there's always a way. We need to crack our heads, to find a way.
Thank you. And I think it's clear as well that, we don't expect this change to be done overnight, but at least there is, more than a few steps towards it. We can probably take one last question from the floor. Gerard, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to go back to that bit about SLIs, or sign language interpreters, and how important they are at this point. I do understand, I don't know, I heard this through the grapevine. I don't know how far this is true, but with regards to the English language and SLIs, apparently we've got a shortage of that, and probably one Zoraida can walk us through this. Apparently there's a shortage of sign language interpreters in English. Hence, if we're doing talk shows in English and we require the service of a sign language interpreter in English, it is hard at this point. And also, just as a suggestion, or just to digress a little, while we're talking about this, to anyone here who is somehow in touch with people doing signboards for the rest of us, as an able-bodied person who's had ADD most of my life, looking at, I get anxiety attacks looking at signposts as I'm driving. I think that's something that we should also look into. And because this is being recorded, I just hope someone out there will see this. Yeah. But having said that, that's one of my questions with regards to sign language interpreters. And also, when we learn sign language, for those of us in broadcast, for me as a broadcaster, I'd like to learn a little bit of sign language because I think it will come handy in times of emergencies, saying if we have to MC something with regards to, God forbid, and knock on wood, that something like that doesn't happen again. MH370 happens, or when it happened, a bit of sign language on our part would have made it so much easier to get a lot of messaging across, because that it was a very crucial time for all of us here in Malaysia. Now, I guess would it be something that's doable for broadcasters to know, whether you're radio or TV, to know a little bit of sign language, and to take this one step further ahead? We've always talked about PWDs, but we've never talked about them appearing on TV or radio. That's a conversation we need to do. And also very quickly talking about interns. I have interns coming in, and I think one of my interns was from IIUM too, a very capable girl called Nafisa, and she's helped us very much in the past 3 months. But I guess therein also lies a problem. If we want them to do something, they need to do a smorgasbord of things to ensure that their internship, they've learned something throughout the tenure of their internship. So I guess if we made them do just come in and do just say subtitling, it would be unfair on their part, because we need them to also learn the different facets of broadcast. That's just it. Just if I can get some information on the sign language interpreter, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Sorry, from Mr. Sazali. Right. I'll reply with regards to the shortage of sign language interpreter in English. Yeah. Right. I would agree with you that the current interpreters that we have, many are actually monolingual, but we do have, bilingual interpreters for any other languages. But the thing is, they are residing outskirts of Kuala Lumpur. So we have to kind of think of how to bring them in. How could we actually if for those in Sabah and Sarawak, we do have our interpreters there that we're already trained, but there be kind of a broadcast station over the other side, or you could just do it via online or things like that, for the program and things like that. Then, it will make it possible for you to have, more interpreters for English program and all. So the other thing is also, if you talk about talk show, before this we actually did talk show, and we used the deaf interpreters. But the only thing is, we highlighted during talk show done by Bernama itself is, so we said that is it possible, we inform YB Senator Dr. Ras that particular talk show to have 2 sign language interpreter. One is deaf, the other one is hearing. And we can actually know, a question actually been asked by a senator, question been replied by the invited guest, and things like, we can see the difference. So perhaps maybe, that also another way that broadcasters could actually also view in that sense, the different that we need and all. And the rest of it, I think maybe I could allow Zoraida to actually answer on behalf, if moderator doesn't mind.
Please go ahead.
Yep. Okay. It's for me, the question that Mr. Jura actually question that it portrayed with regards to interpreters for English especially. We are training more right now. sorry, the following batch. But as what been shared by Encik Sazali, is like there are many of them, but they are actually not in the Klang Valley. So it make it like, you know, we have to arrange in such a way that if they're coming here to interpret for a TV program or things like that, we have to make sure that they stay on and they will interpret for the news for a couple of days, yeah, in order to actually fulfill the you know, the transport cost of coming and also the time factors, yeah, for them. So that is actually kind of like a minor hiccup that we actually ourselves have to actually look into it, and we try to actually train more and more of them, yeah, to be able to have or to do multilingual, not only BM English or maybe any other languages after this. Yep. And the question with regards to sorry. Oh, deaf interpreters or deaf to be employed as interpreters or to be invited as interpreters on the TV program and all, yeah? Yes, we are also doing it. We have a group of deaf people, yeah, who are actually going to come in as sign language interpreters and also be supported by the hearing interpreters to work together as a team. So that is actually another avenue that we're actually going to you know, move on with it. And when Mr. Gerard also mentioned with regards to the in-house staff of Bernama TV or any other TV station who wanted to actually learn sign language, yeah, and yes, we welcome that. We welcome everyone who actually have greater interest in learning the language, because it helps a lot, yeah, especially during emergency, it helps a lot. So we encourage more and more people so we can actually, yeah, discuss or move on with it if Bernama or anyone actually interested to do it within the I mean the group of employers who are involved with this section, yeah. So just that from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that sort of sums it up for us as well. Making sure that we don't just have awareness, we don't just have guidelines, but it's implemented effectively will take a collaborative effort between or among all of us, broadcasters, sign language interpreters, the PWD community and everyone. I would like to wrap this up by thanking each and every one of our panel here today. Thank you to our active participants as well. This was excellent. Thank you to the sign language interpreters for helping us out for this panel. Thank you very much. I would like to pass the floor back to Mawa.
Thank you, Ms. Madiha. Thank you, Dr. Aida. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad Sazali, who was assisted by Puan Zuraida from BIM. And also thank you to Ms. Ong Soyin for the engaging session. We hope that the participants here today will benefit from the contents of the discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we truly hope that you have had the opportunity to grasp the objectives of the guidelines and provisions that has been introduced in order to ensure the accessibility of content to the PWD community, given that they too has the right to equal access to information. Ladies and gentlemen, our webinar today is coming to an end. To assist with the translation of this final session, we would like to call upon the interpreter from BIM. And we are pleased to invite Mr. Kenny Ong, the Chairman of Communications and Multimedia Content Forum Malaysia, to deliver his closing speech. Mr. Kenny is currently serving as a Chairman for Content Forum Malaysia, and he is the CEO of Astro Radio and Rocket Fuel Entertainment, which are both part of Astro Malaysia Holdings Berhad, Malaysia's leading multi-platform content and consumer company. Please welcome Mr. Kenny Ong. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's the end of a very long day. As usual, the good team from Content Forum prepared for me a very long speech, which I will not read. And I'll just mention just a couple of points I think very important for us to close the day. Number one is that I'd like to thank everybody here, especially the speakers and MCMC for giving your thoughts. And I think we are all aligned as to what needs to be done and what needs to be done further with regards to assisting all manner of content and accessibility for PWDs. And especially if you look at the efforts done by MCMC on the updating of the guidelines for access, And also Content Forum ourselves, which we have actually renewed or updated our content code with new focus on PWD access to content. That's a key thing that we are now trying to focus on in educating the market about, especially content creators and the broadcasters and the media players. There are two things inside the content code which are important with regards to the PWD side. One is accessibility. The kind of content that you create must be inclusive and accessible to PWDs. And the second one is, of course, what we call, I think in a way, it's anti-bullying, or any content that is created that goes against the spirit of you know, of our harmony, of our interaction with the PWDs. And this is something that we are also focusing upon, you know, to say that you should not have content that violates this kind of rules from an ethical and moral standpoint. So those are the two key things that we have in the content code updates. And, you know, with regards to the summary of what we heard from the speakers, there are two things, of course, we know that are very important here. There are two keywords that keep on repeating over and over again from all the speakers and from anybody who is, of course, from the floor as well. One is inclusive. The other one is accessibility. And these are the two keywords we need to keep on stressing. And there was a mention just now with regards to accessibility. And the key point about accessibility is the ability for us to remove barriers for people to access the content that we have for everyone. So that is the, you know, one of the things that needs to be done, not so much from the guideline or policy perspective, but it needs to be done by many of the people in this room, you know, who are in this panel, the content creators, the media players, the broadcasters, for us to be able to have the focus to remove the barriers to accessibility and inclusiveness, so that we are more inclusive for everybody to the content that we are creating. And I would like to end by saying that each of us have a role to play, and I don't think we can wait for the world to be perfect for us to do something. Each of us in the role that we have, whether we are a content creator, we are a policy creator, whether we are the government agency, we are a broadcaster, we should do something that we can right now. Whatever we can do, we should start with that and then build upon that, instead of waiting for something that is too far away, or, you know, takes too much budget to implement. And these are things that we can readily do from now on. An example would be, I think, even from when we have funding for content creation. And I think this is, I just give you an example. For example, if we have like FINAS, you know, or those who are giving content grants, to have certain portion of those grants to make sure that the content creators are actually creating something that the PWDs have access to, and it's something that will assist, you know, to make it more, like I said, inclusive and accessible for everybody. So that is one small component, and that can be done by the content creators, even like ourselves at the broadcaster level. So I would like to stress that these are things that we need to do even from now, and we cannot wait. And it's something that we need to build upon by starting with whatever effort and whatever resources that we have right now, and to build upon that with whatever best abilities that we have. And it's something that we will continue on the content forum front, and together with MCMC, to continue to educate the market, to continue to educate all the players who are creating contents and, you know, for distributing content, to make sure that we are, like we said, to be more inclusive and accessible for PWDs, especially in Malaysia. So I'd like to end my speech by saying thank you very much for all the speakers again, and let's all work on this together. And if you have any thing that you'd like to share with us, especially MCMC or the content forum, on ideas on how we think we can work together to build upon what we have talked about today, please reach out to us, and we will, like what we said, do our best and progress together with everybody. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kenny, for that overview of the content code and its aim in ensuring accessibility to all members of the society, especially the PWDs, through establishment of its provisions. We at the Content Forum are certainly grateful to have a leadership that continues to aspire the members of the content industry in ensuring the inclusivity and accessibility by the PWD community in Malaysia. So ladies and gentlemen, We would like to request now for the participants here today to switch on your camera so that we can quickly snap the must-have group photo for today's webinar. I would like to get assistance from Mas in order to screenshot. And can we have the slides down, please, so that we can have all photos together? Thank you. All right. Jack, can I confirm that everyone, the secretary is ready to take a shot?
All right, yes, please, Mawa. Thanks.
All right, everyone, smile for the camera. 1, 2, 3. All right, maybe one more shot. Jack, can we do that?
Yes, please, thanks.
Okay. One more time, everyone. Smile. All right, I guess that's done. We got the photos, Jack.
Yes, Mawa, thanks.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Jack, for the confirmation. And thank you, everyone. Thank you very, very much for participating in today's webinar. We have been truly honored to have you here with us today. Before bidding our goodbyes, we would like to humbly request for everyone here today to spare some time in providing us with some feedback on the webinar today for our future improvement. Please scan the QR code that is currently being projected on the screen right now to access the feedback form. Should you have any problems accessing the form, do let us know. In the meantime, allow me to announce the name of the winners for the most active participants for the webinar today. So for these winners, just a short reminder, please leave your name and your contact details for the secretariat so that they can contact you further for the cash prizes, yeah? So our first winner for today, I guess it's quite obvious. We have Gerard from Bernama. Congratulations, Gerard. And we have Hazlinda from Bernama as well. And last but not least, Miss Nithya Chua from MCMC. Congratulations to all of the winners. Please contact the secretariat so that they can arrange your prizes, yeah? Ladies and gentlemen, with that announcement, it brings us to the end of today's session. Our special gratitude goes to our keynote speaker, Yang Berusaha, Professor Dr. Rosita binti Muhammad Amin, for the inspiring speech. Our heartfelt appreciation to our sign language interpreters from Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia, who has made today's webinar accessible by our honored participants. Our heartiest thank you to Mr. Zulkarnain Muhammad Yassin and Mr. Kenny Ong for your time today and for your continuous leadership in guiding the licensees and the players of the local Malaysian content creators and broadcasters. To our respected presenters, Ms. Ong Soyin and Mr. Andrew Kunaselan, thank you for your informative presentation. We also like to thank you, our moderator, for the panel discussion, Ms. Mediha Mahmud, and of course, not forgetting our panelists, Dr. Aida Mokhtar, Mr. Muhammad Sazali Sha'ari, Mr. Wong Yun Lung, for your support today's towards event. On behalf of the Content Forum, a special thank you to the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission for your continuous support and collaboration in making this event happen. Finally, thank you everyone for participating. We hope the information provided was insightful and have answered some of your questions. We hope that through this webinar, all Malaysian content industry players shall endeavour to take reasonable efforts to improve the accessibility of content being disseminated for persons with disabilities vis-a-vis the implementation of appropriate access service. So stay safe and stay connected, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.